And we are live. Welcome to the MLB Deeper Dive. It is Wednesday, August 16th. I am Josh Engleman. I am joined by Matt Belman. We are here to break down an 8-game main slate. We are brought to you by Sleeper. I hope this main slate looks a little bit better than the early slate did. And I hope today's main slate looks a lot better than tomorrow's main slate, which is 4 games and should not be allowed in any way. Or Stokastic should treat it as a company holiday. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live. Follow us both on Twitter. Matt, what's going on?
Nothing, man. I'm with you all the way around on the early slate, tomorrow's slate. Excited to jump into this one with you. It should be a fun one. Really interesting options all over the board.
I like it. It's pretty balanced. We don't have the Coors game on the main slate. We don't have a Cincinnati game on the main slate. So we don't have real craziness. We do have a Wrigley Wind game that we're going to have to get into in a little bit, but we don't have the same sort of, oh, the Diamondbacks have a 47% chance to be the top stack for today type slate. So that's fun. I'm happy about that. Michael Thomas in the chat, driving through North Carolina now. Hi, Josh. Michael Thomas, where are you? That's what I want to know. Which direction are you? I assume you're driving north to south, because if you're driving east to west, you would have started in North Carolina, and I doubt you're coming to North Carolina. So Michael Thomas, where are you going? And which side of the state are you on? If you're coming north to south, I am not on the north side, so I will not be there. If you're coming from the south, hi, I'm closer to you right now. That's the best I can do.
Where are you exactly?
And I'm in Wilmington, so southeast corner of North Carolina. About as close, pretty close to South Carolina.
I was just in South Carolina a couple weeks. That's why I asked.
Where were you? Myrtle or
Kiowa Island?
Oh, okay. Great spot. Gorgeous.
Yeah, really fun. Yeah, really fun. Family vacation.
Nice. Obviously, Island is beautiful. Do any golfing?
No, I'm not a golfer. My dad's a big golfer when his back isn't killing him. But it's just a great spot, like to, rented a house. It was just a lot of fun being with the family.
Very relaxing on Kiowa, that's for sure.
It is, though, like mostly all you can do is golf.
Yes, that's a lot of the South. You can eat food that is probably aggressively bad for you and golf.
Yeah, I told one of my buddies I was going there, and he was like, "What are you doing?" He was like, "Why are you going there? Like, you don't even golf." So, yeah, for sure.
Soaking up the air conditioning.
Yeah, right.
It's really all you can do. It's been miserable here. Yeah,
it was so hot.
Yesterday was just north of 110 on the heat index here, somewhere in that neighborhood again today. Just hanging out inside, not fun.
You feel it too, like, because it's hot here. I feel like it's hot everywhere in the summer when it gets hot, but it's different, if you will.
I feel like you need to cut through the air to walk forward. Like you have to make space. It's just not. I don't enjoy it. Summer down here is the worst. August and September are my by far least favorite months that exist in Wilmington. I hate it. It's no part of it is enjoyable. I don't want to be outside. I don't understand how anyone would want to be outside. Give me spring, give me fall, give me winter before this. Because winter's not really winter here.
It's too hot. I know. Give you your winter. I was going to say, would you take like a northeast winter over that summer? No, exactly. Because you can just be inside and it doesn't inconvenience your life.
Okay, so the answer is yes. I was too quick. My answer is yes. I would take the northeast winter, but there's a very specific reason I would take it. It wouldn't affect me. I wouldn't have to shovel it. And that's
you're taking the northeast winter over your
my current home right now. I would rather just have 4 days of a blizzard that shuts me in because it wouldn't change anything. I wouldn't have to deal with it. Back in the day when I was in the Northeast, you're shoveling your driveway, you're shoveling your sidewalk, you're doing whatever you have to do. You have to I had to maintain that snow, and that was the problem. Or you got to walk across campus and, school's covered in snow. I wouldn't have to do any of that. I don't have any reason to go anywhere. I work from home. So it wouldn't matter to me now if we got that snow because I wouldn't have to go out and traverse it.
I understand that and appreciate it. My take is different. I get what you're saying, and I don't really have anywhere to go either, but I like being able to go somewhere if I want. And I hate the inconvenience of snow outside, the cold, my hands get chapped. I hate it.
See, I'm looking at it like I'm going to watch an entire 100 episode show on Netflix over the next, 3 days.
I get it. Listen, they both kind of suck.
Yeah.
But like you said, outside of those 2 months, the weather is so nice there, I'm sure.
Spring and fall are my favorite things in the world. You get a couple months of just perfect weather. It's a dream. Almost as perfect as this particular slate, which has excellent balance that we're going to get into right now. So hit that like button. To the 336 of you that are here, hit that thumbs up. Let's get into it. We're going to start with the Nats, 4-run implied total, hosting the Boston Red Sox. Mackenzie Gore going for the Washington Nationals from 30 minutes outside of Wilmington, Whiteville, North Carolina. James Paxton going for the Red Sox. Let's start with Paxton, 8,200 today. He's 21% owned, but that's a price tag that you don't normally see for James Paxton. How does he look to you?
He looks really good at this price point. He's right tied with Kershaw for the fourth highest strikeout percentage on the slate. The Nats don't strike out a lot, but I don't understand why he's so cheap. There's a bunch of good pitching options on this slate, but none of them are in particularly good spots. So I don't love that the Nats don't strike out, but they're still a worse offense than a lot of other teams' pitchers are facing on this slate. So for me, yeah, there's always risk with Paxton. Like, he's surely not the safest guy in the world, but at this price with so much strikeout upside, I have a hard time not at least being very interested. Do you see it similarly?
I think he's owned properly. I don't have much else. You did mention the strikeout matchup here. The Nats, this is a Nats team that doesn't strike out all that much. And even the guys that they don't really have too many guys that are crazy from a strikeout perspective. But then you get somebody like Keibert Ruiz, who doesn't really strike out at all, particularly against lefties. So that really starts to limit it a bit. I'm actually a little bit lighter on Paxton today than I would have ever expected to be. When I saw his price, I was like, oh, he's going to be the most popular pitcher because it's the Nats on the opposite side and he's 8,200 and it just felt weird. I think he's sort of properly owned and I'm just a hair underneath where the field is. I expected to have a lot more and I don't. I'm getting to a little bit more John Gray now than I was as a bigger pay down option. And I'm getting to a lot of Blake Snell, who we'll touch on in a little bit, but whether it's Paxton or on the opposite side as a value option for Mackenzie Gore, Gore only 6K, much more difficult matchup against the Red Sox, comparable ownership, but you're getting that discount in price. Are you expecting to have, I guess my first question is, you're playing limited lineups tonight or are you going big or anything crazy?
No, okay. I'm playing limited lineups. I'm playing higher dollars. I'm playing higher dollar single rounds and stuff.
Okay. Are you looking at Gore as a potential value pitcher?
I was when I first looked at the slate, but he's 6K. So if you want to stack the Braves, I think taking a shot at Gore makes a lot of sense. There's just too many other good pitchers for me on the slate to really have enough confidence to lock him in. If I'm making one lineup, let's say, he'd certainly be in my pool if I were multi-entering. Just to touch on what you said about Paxton and his ownership, I agree with you. I think he's properly owned just because there's so many other good pitchers in good pitching tonight. And none of them are crazy expensive. Like we saw last night, Montgomery was 11K. Gausman's 500 less than that. He's 1,000 less than Wheeler was last night. So that makes Paxton's cheap price less desirable, if you will. So I understand, what your point, and I agree with you. I think the ownership is right on there. As far as Gore goes, I think he's in play just because of the price point, but it's hard to have a ton of confidence in him in this spot. I actually like the Boston Bats quite a bit.
All right, we're going to get into the Boston Bats in 1 second. I do want to hit on Julio G's super chat quickly. He said, Josh, on a given slate, how many sims are you running? Once you have your output and remove low projected lineups, is it a random pick from there? So I'm importing, I use 5,000 lineups. I would use more if I had more at my disposal, but from a speed perspective, I can get 5,000 out. And if I needed to make changes, I can get that all done in the final 3 minutes before lock. So that's about the amount of time that I need. Probably 4 is a little bit safer. And at 5,000, I can handle that. I would take 10,000. I would take 20,000 if I could get them made slightly faster. But for me, I wouldn't say that it's a random pick. I'm taking whatever ranks the best for me, but I'm not paying attention to what's coming out. I'm not making any distinctions. I'm taking the top 150 lineups that I have sorted out after my simulation based on the things that I'm evaluating those lineups on. But the simulation is carrying 95% of the weight at that point. Talk to me about the Red Sox. 5th in top stack, 4th in ownership, 4th in stack score. You said you like them here against Gore. What stands out the most to you?
So Gore is the prototypical, like, strikes guys out, but also gives up power.
Yeah.
He puts guys on base with a really high whip. Boston just looks good here, especially with, Trevor Story back in the lineup, hitting right in the middle, power, speed, upside there. Don't talk about stolen bases a ton, but they're huge for DFS upside. Boston doesn't run a lot, but Story is a guy who will run. He's already shown that since he's been back. So that only increases my interest in Boston. I will say I like the middle of their lineup, far more than the bottom of their lineup, except for Casas, who's hitting 8th. I think he's the kind of guy you can go to be sneaky in the stack. But like Devers, Turner, Story, Duvall, those 4 look like one of the top foursomes on the slate in my eyes.
I love that middle section, Story in particular. Now he's getting the ownership. He's 4,500, but 4,500 in the heart of the Red Sox lineup in Washington against a guy that has no problem. 206 x ISO for Gore against righties this season. There's strikeout stuff there, but the power plays up in this park, and he's hitting basically two of the most important positions that you could hit on a slate with that flexibility, with that price. He should be highly owned. You're probably looking at him in cash games as some sort of flexible option. Maybe you're going to Cubs or Braves, but he's certainly on the short list. I understand where you want to go here with Boston. They do grade out really well. Do you see anything from a value side on Washington here against Paxton? Anybody that stands out? They're an all right value stack, but they're 11th in our top stack tool. They're unowned. So is there anything on the Washington side that you like at low ownership?
Well, I think that you hit the nail on the head. It's the low ownership is my interest in Washington. That's where it starts and ends. You got a guy like Lane Thomas who is decent against lefties, not really an overall good hitter, but he's been good against lefties this year if you want to go with that. So I don't really see much for me personally.
I don't have much. I've got a couple, I had a lot more this morning, oddly enough. I was taking pretty big stands on a couple of the, I don't want to say huge underdogs, but I was taking a couple big stands on the underdogs. It has tapered off a little bit, thank God. So I only have 9 5-mans of the Nats right now. So I'm getting a little bit, but if everybody's 2% and I have 7%.
Exactly.
I'm okay with that.
I think they're a really good multi-entering team to get a little bit of, like you are.
It's just a great park for offense. Plays up runs. It plays up power to both hands. It's just that kind of balance. Every once in a while, you're going to see Paxton give up a little bit of power.
They would look better to me if Paxton were getting more love. Like he's getting ownership, but not any more than 5 other guys on this slate.
Absolutely. Anything else for Nats and Red Sox?
Not really, no.
We're going to move on to Blue Jays and Phillies, which I think is a fascinating game to talk about. Kevin Gausman going for Toronto, Aaron Nola going for the Phillies. Minimal run total in this one, 4 runs for the Jays, 3.5 for the Phillies. Gausman only 26% owned at 10,500. That's the first interesting piece here because you do have Blake Snell at $400 cheaper. So let's start with Kevin Gausman. Obviously, the ceiling is massive. He's one of the better starters in the league. Is he the guy you're getting to at the top?
I think between him, Snell, and even Castillo right below them, I think all 3 of them you can make the case for. I'm with you. I think up top, I prefer Snell. That's no slight on Gausman, though. He has the highest strikeout percentage on the slate. I just really hate, I don't love the matchup for Snell. I much prefer picking on Baltimore with lefties, though. That's the deciding factor. And I don't want to pick on Philly either. Now, the bottom of their lineup is pretty trashy, but up top is good. So I think Gausman is perfectly fine here, but he doesn't stand out to me as someone you have to get to, if you will.
Yeah. So we have Snell at 35% ownership. We have Gausman at 27. I think those numbers should be 35 and 22. So I think the ownership that we're getting between those top 2 guys is where it should be. And in those cases, I tend to concentrate and split. So I have a lot of bit more Snell and a little bit less Gausman in that scenario. Doesn't make me feel great just because Gausman's really good, but a lot of lefty bats and power in the Philly lineup that could get a little squirrely for this one. And then that brings us to Nola, 9K, 14% owned. He's 15% top 2 pitcher odds in our top pitchers tool. Are you likely to get to Nola? Because I think that's where it starts to get really interesting for the rest of this slate.
Yeah, he's one of the more interesting talking points on the slate in my eyes. I'm a big Nola fan. I think he's an upper echelon pitcher. Not having a great year. I mean, take that with a grain of salt. We're not using him because of what he's doing this year. It is far enough in the season, though, where we're looking at that stuff. He's been better at home his entire career. It's not a good spot in Toronto against the Blue Jays. I mean, they do not strike out. Wheeler pitched well last night, still only struck out 5 guys. This is just not a lineup that strikes out, and they're also good. That said, he's only 9K. Like, he's so cheap. So this is one where I don't really have much interest in going to Toronto bats against him, but I'm certainly interested in him at this price point. Not exactly sure what to do with him. What's your take?
So I'm neutral to the field, and I think that's where you have to be in a way, because he does have real strikeout stuff, 25% across both hands. It's been higher than that in the past. And this Blue Jays park, neutral for runs, but while it used to, we talked about it on the strategy show this morning, while it used to play up power to righties, it hasn't been doing that this year due to some of the park changes. So it's a park that should help out Aaron Nola a little bit. But Nola this season, 161 x ISO to lefties, 188 to righties. And if you just want to add in last year, it does bring it down a little bit, but it doesn't make him a guy that isn't prone to power. And this is a team that has a ton of it. Belt, Guerrero, Springer, Varsho. This isn't the lineup that would normally have a ton of power. They are missing a couple of those options. So there's a scenario where I see Toronto and it's just like, oh, they hit like 5 solo home runs today. And then there's also the scenario where it's like, oh, the ball stayed in the park and Nola got 9 Ks. I see both sides of that. Right now, I'm neutral to the Phillies, and I'm basically neutral to the Blue Jays. I can handle that. Earlier today, I thought I was going to take a bigger stand, but I do think the Blue Jays look like weird on paper because of that weird park factor. I'm anxious to see what ends up happening with righty power in Toronto.
Yeah, I love those points. I think both these teams are, worth at least talking about in tournaments, playing if you're playing a bunch of lineups, simply for the fact that they're both really good offenses. So I know you talk a lot about this when you're on shows with Adam, like 2 good pitchers on both sides, 2 really good offenses. Like, yeah, not necessarily, none of the sides are getting a ton of ownership except for Gausman, who's not even getting a ton, like, as far as he's concerned. I mean, so you'll see some slates where he's getting even double this ownership. So yeah, I do think, making a stand on this game isn't like the worst play in the world at all.
Anything else you want to touch on for this game?
No, I do think that it's one of the more fascinating ones, though, of the slate.
All righty. Well, 2 games up. We've got 6 more to go. Let's talk a little bit about schedule for the rest of the day. Coming up after this, no surprises here. MLB Live Before Lock will take you all the way from 6 until 7 o'clock, but we don't stop there. Today is Wednesday, which means PGA Live Before Lock coming up tonight at 8 p.m. It's going to be the BMW, I believe. I think I should know that. I'm already registered for it. The BMW, yes, I am right. So we don't have too much golf left. So if you want to get in on it, this is probably the last real tournament that you can enter. Plenty of showdowns to go around for it, but make sure you're watching Ben break this bad boy down tonight at 8. And then make sure you're signing up at BetMGM. You know the theme of this video. Get free money whenever you can get it. BetMGM is the perfect way to get that free money. Sign up using the link in the description. And based on your first deposit and the first bet you make, you get covered up to $1,000. And I'm burying the lead. You get a month of Stokastic Plus Platinum, but we're chasing free money here. If the first bet you place wins, you put $1,000 down and it wins, that money's just in your account. You don't have to worry about this promo at all. You just have the money. If it loses, however, you can get up to $1,000 back in first bet insurance. So maybe your first bet's only for $100. Well, you can get that back as first bet insurance. My recommendation, go for the full 1,000. Don't leave this money on the table. Give yourself a chance to make a lot of money pseudo risk-free. I'm not saying risk-free. That's not the words you're hearing from me, folks. Pseudo risk-free, allegedly risk-free. Whatever those words are, you have to say that you mean something, but you have to give it the wink. That's what I'm doing right now. So please just go sign up at BetMGM. You guys know what I'm trying to tell you guys. 1-800-GAMBLER is the number you need to call because the legal age in most states for gambling is 21 or over. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem, that's the number you need. But sign up at BetMGM and take the shot, folks. Game 3. My Braves bludgeoning my dad's Yankees. 5.6 run implied total for the Braves. 4 for the Yanks. Charlie Morton going for Atlanta. Randy Vasquez going for the Yankees. Sounds like a made-up person. Charlie Morton is 11% owned at 8,500 here against the Yanks. Should he be more owned?
I don't know. I don't think so. I think he's properly owned. He's not in great form. The matchup's pretty good, not like great. I mean, it's pretty good, except outside of the top guys in the lineup. I think it's kind of like Paxton. He's cheap for who he is, but there's other really good pitching options on this slate. Our top pitcher tool would say he's underowned slightly, but still say he's underowned. So you got to like that. He is very affordable for who he is. I know that his walk rate has spiked recently. If he can get that under control, he's in a pretty good spot to have a good start here, especially at that price point. Much more interested in him than the Yankees bats in this spot. Not sure I ultimately use him, but I think like him versus Paxton is really fair. And based on our top pitcher tool, like he looks like the better tournament play.
Yeah. So Paxton's basically twice as owned as Morton. On paper, I think both of these guys are equal relative to salary. So right now, I'm getting to a lot more Morton than I am Paxton. I'm just flip-flopping those two guys. So instead of Paxton being 20% owned and Morton's 12, I'm getting 20% of Morton and 12 of Paxton, basically. I'm terrified of Morton's problems with righties. The fact that he has been ass for the past 4 starts with putting everybody on with free passes. You put a couple free guys on you put Bader and Higashioka on, and then you get to Torres, Judge, and Stanton. Like one of those balls is going to end up in the seats because those guys just hit home runs. I'm not ultra scared of this lineup, but Morton's had enough issues with righty power that I see the upside both ways. If Morton gets his walk rate, the same sort of conversation that we had before. If Morton gets this walk stuff in check, this Yankees team hasn't looked good. He could just go out there and be good for 6 innings, pick up a couple strikeouts, and this start looks fantastic at 8,500. Or he walks 5 guys, and you can't do that with Torres, Judge, and Stanton in front of you. And all of a sudden, he's given up 3 2-run homers, and he is the death sentence for your lineup. I see both sides.
Yeah, I do too. This is definitely one where, like you mentioned, if he walks the wrong guys here, like the guys that aren't good, he's in a lot of trouble. If he gets that under control, and who cares if he walks Judge? But
yeah, like I hope he's really wild against Torres, Judge, and Stanton.
Yeah,
if anything.
I agree. We see this pretty much eye to eye. Another one where, I think going to Morton, especially like, really only in tournaments, but if you're multi-entering, you definitely want some exposure, and having more of him than Paxton is a stand I get.
I assume you don't want Randy Vasquez?
No, you can't really play anyone against the Braves right now. This is the same story every night, right? Like the Braves are expensive. They're a little bit cheaper now with Harris hitting second. They're the top stack on the board, at least close to it, if not the top. Just a matter of whether you want to pay up for, their expensive bats.
Well, then let's talk about those expensive bats. 3rd in our top stack tool. 14th in our top value, 5th in ownership. Ronald Acuna at 17% ownership. Michael Harris at 12, which, let's be clear here, he's 4,400 and not hitting 9th anymore. I think 12th is a bit low for him, or 12% is a bit low for him. Single digits across the board for everybody else. They are tough to get up to. Do you go to Atlanta? Because I've got a bunch today.
I'm really worried this ownership is just not how it's going to shake out. Now, there's nothing you can do with that because, I'm not going to say in my mind these guys, but like last night, for instance, they were way more popular than Arizona in like the higher dollar, lower entry stuff. Harris was 55% in like the 70 man, like 1,500 or whatever it was. So I know that's a small contest, but that shows you. I think Harris is very off. Like his ownership is off here. At this current ownership, I think the Braves look amazing. Yeah,
you and me both. I have a ton. I think they're probably a little bit more owned than this. Like if we have 7% aggregate, if you tell me it's 9 or 10, that's a pretty big percentage increase, but it's not, if you move Austin Riley from 6 to 9 or 10, you move Matt Olson from 6 to 10. Those aren't massive changes that are ruining Atlanta for me.
They still look like the best stack in that.
I think everybody's just incrementally a little bit higher than that.
I agree with you. If it's just incrementally higher, they still look like the best stack because they're way under-owned right now. I mean, they're coming in as like the 5th or 6th highest owned stack, which is just, that should not be.
Yeah. I've got a ton. I think Michael Harris is the best play on the Braves, particularly at that ownership. By all means, get to if these guys are really 6% owned, then the best plays really are Riley and Olsen and Ozuna. I do think they're going to be a little bit higher than that, at which point Harris for 4,400 in the 2-hole is just always going to be interesting. Love Atlanta today. So I assume today is the day they don't score the runs when I turn that game on for my dad. Any interest in the Yankees against Morton?
Slight interest. If I were making 150, I want them in my pool just because they do have power upside against Morton, especially if he's putting guys on. But I think it's more trying to pick out a home run or two. So mini stacks probably look better. This is another one. The top of their lineup looks far superior. So those are the guys I'd be targeting.
All righty. Yeah, I've got a little over 10% of Gleyber Torres, $3,900 second baseman. And, I mentioned that righty stuff before. So otherwise, not really getting to too much Yankees. And I just want to tell my dad that the Braves dominated the Yankees again. That's really all that I want.
Well, I know you also wanted the Rockies to score. They now have 7 runs.
They do have 7 runs. I wish they had more than 7 runs, but I'll take 7.
Yeah.
Beggars can't be choosers.
Yeah, I was gonna say pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered.
Fair enough. I'm gonna have to work that one into my life moving forward. That's a great line.
Love that.
Okay, next game, wind game. Cubs and White Sox battle for Chicago. 6-run implied total for the Cubbies, 4.9 for the White Sox. Javier Assad for Chicago, Mike Clevinger for other Chicago. Do you want either one of the Chicago arms?
No.
Correct answer. Don't have anything to add to that at all. So we will talk bats. Number 1 in top stack, number 3 in ownership Cubs, or number 4 in top stack, number 2 in ownership White Sox, who just happened to be fully free today outside of Lubob. Which Chicago team do you want more of?
I mean, in tournaments, it's definitely the Cubs based on this ownership. The White Sox at this ownership just is a team I really don't want to get to. They suck. They're in a good spot against Assad, with the wind blowing out, but that's it. It's not like Assad is some trash can either. He's not particularly good, but he's not a guy that I need to sell my soul to stack a choppy White Sox against. The Cubs look better in tournaments because they're a lot more expensive and they're going to be less owned. The price tags don't really, it's not an issue today though. The pitching's pretty cheap.
You have if you just want to go by ownership, you've got a 27% owned John Gray at 6,900 and a 16% owned Mackenzie Gore at 6K, which is close to 50% ownership in the aggregate. Half of the lineups are going to have a pay down option. You can find a pay down pitcher if you need one. But boy, oh boy, can you find a pay down option in the White Sox. $5,200 for Lubob. Next most expensive guy, $3,100 Tim Anderson. These dudes are as cheap as it gets. So what's the path here? You go to the White Sox, Gausman plus Snell because you can?
I think that's definitely the path. And then you just don't, you don't need to spend down a pitcher at all because you can 5-man stack any 5 you want with, the highest end pitchers. So I get why that's going to be, I get why that's going to be owned. I don't see that taking down a tournament tonight. That's just me personally.
Okay. Yeah, it's not a path that I anticipate having all that much of. I only got to 5 White Sox stacks. So I'm very light on the White Sox side of this game. I'm neutral to the Cubs side of this game. I don't know what to do with it. I hate win games.
Same.
I hate win games.
Yeah, I do too. Because it go ahead. Sorry.
No, I don't. Hit me with it.
No, I don't have much to say either. I was just going to kind of flow off what you were saying.
It just doesn't feel like that windy, I guess. You see some Cubs win games, and the listed mile per hour for wins is 19, 20, and you're like, okay. I mean, today, as listed, I see 11, which is fine. And I understand the line is higher. I expect this to be a bit of a win game, but I don't think this White Sox lineup is very good. It's not that I think Javier Assad is very good either, but is there power there? Yeah, but nothing crazy. I think it's a lot easier to get to the Cubs, so I'm happy being neutral there, especially because they have 3 guys with MPEs, plenty of flexibility in that direction. They hide Tucker Barnhart in the 9-hole, so if I don't need to get a crappy catcher, I don't have to. I can fill that out with one of the other teams. I expect to have more Cubs, but I'm hoping this game just mostly stays quiet, particularly on the White Sox end.
I'm really interested to see where ownership ends up landing, because are people really going to play two expensive pitchers just to play the White Sox here? Or would they rather spend down a bit and play the Braves? Like, I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
the White Sox, when I first looked at it, I was like, maybe they'll come in a little bit under owned because it's the White Sox. It is intriguing that they're fourth overall in the top stack tool, which says a lot, because this is a team that is perpetually towards the bottom. So tells you all you need to know, but the ownership's there. So this is not like a place that I want to go. I mean, if I were playing a 150, I wouldn't fade them because that's silly, but I'd be under the field.
Yeah, I'm not going to have much of them as a stack, but they're certainly going to be a chunk of filler for me. You know, in a Brave stack, for instance, really easy to have your next three dudes be from the White Sox.
Yeah, I completely agree. I mean, like you said, besides Robert, they're really cheap, and a guy like Moncada hitting cleanup at 3K, he looks good here. So the top of their lineup certainly looks better, but even towards the bottom, Sheets at 2K, Grandal at catcher. So yeah, I do understand the ownership. It's just one of those, like, if the White Sox at high ownership beat me, I'll play tomorrow.
Yeah, this is just not that, like, I'm never going to win a slate where they go crazy.
Yeah, same.
And I'm okay with that. Like, that, I have that same path for other things. Everybody's going to have a lane that they generally take, that their model pushes them towards. The White Sox today, the ultra high-end value team is rarely going to be the team that I get to unless pitching at the top is even more concentrated than it is today.
Right, because the value team, like, always gets a lot, well, not always, usually gets a lot of love. And in baseball, I don't want to say it's irrelevant, but it just matters so much less. We're not talking about value in basketball, which is just a completely different entity.
Well, a team like the White Sox, when you're the number one, about 29% top value, you so naturally get pulled into an optimizer because you are the best point per dollar option from top to bottom. So you are so naturally filling that, but that does not necessarily for baseball. For basketball, it's different. For baseball, completely different story. Doesn't make the White Sox not good. They're still fourth in top stack. Like, there is potential here. The park plays up. I don't want to talk anybody out the opposite direction, but a lot of the ownership that they're getting has a lot to do with the fact that one guy is priced north of 3,100.
Definitely. And, we talked about their fourth in top stack in the top stack tool. They're second in stack score, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, anyone who wants to get there, I wouldn't argue with the spot they're in. It's just the ownership's already there.
Anything else for Cubs, White Sox? Any individual Cubs bats that you want to point out here? Ian Happ, the guy that I have the most of right now, 3,800.
No, I think that the lefties look, a little bit better, but I think the whole lineup, if you're playing them, I think you want exposure to all of it, because the pieces that don't look as good are going to be less owned.
Well, folks, we are halfway done, which means now is the time for us to talk a little bit about the presenting sponsor of this show. That is going to be Sleeper. I know they want you to hit the like button, but they also want you to save a little bit of money, and you're going to have the easiest time doing it. We talked about how much money you can get into your pocket using BetMGM. Sleeper's hooking you up too. Sign up using the link in the description. You're going to get up to $100 on your first deposit. That part is easy. You have up to 100x payouts on your Sleeper cards. That's pretty interesting to me because they have dynamic payouts. It's not just even action on both sides. But the key piece that we need to hit on for today is the piece that you need to remember every single day. All of these sites give you some sort of bonus or option or free square or taco, depending on what we're talking about. And today, Sleeper is giving you the goods on Kevin Gausman because his line has been moved down just based on retweets. There was a tweet out there. However many retweets it got. Sorry, they're not called retweets any longer. They're called reposts. God, stupid Elon. Anyway, so based on the amount of reposts that I don't know what's a tweet called now, Jordan? Yeah. Okay. So an X was reposted, and every 500 reposts,
that sounds so weird.
You dropped the strikeout down by 1. Over under 2.5 strikeouts for Kevin Gausman today. That is a free square. Is it going to hit 100% of the time? No. Is it going to hit 85% of the time? Yeah, probably. That's one you want to just make sure you're using. Take advantage. Don't let that value go. Whether it's at Sleeper today or any of the other pick'em sites that we're going to touch on every day. These are the spots that are going to make you more money in the long run. These are not winners for the site. They just want you to be there. But if you're using them, they're to your benefit, not theirs. Use that. Punching my microphone. Use that free square today on Kevin Gausman. Use the link in the description if you haven't signed up at Sleeper. Get yourself some free money. Use those plays. Profit. It's that simple.
How many starts this year do you think Gausman will have or have had under 3Ks?
3, 4?
I was going to say 1.
Yeah. It's not a lot. You think, he leaves 1 because he has a blister, 1 he gets popped, 1 he doesn't have like a bunch, like it's just like not that kind of day.
He's a guy he gets to work through his issues though. So like
he does.
You're right. I mean, listen, there's certainly spots where he's not going to get it, but it's like you said, pretty much a free square.
Any game that he is just like allowed to pitch, barring injury, he's going to be fine. I mean, he's hit it every time this year. His low is 4. So I guess my stupid answer of multiple is wrong because he's
gotten shelled a couple times.
He's most of the way to 0 for the season. Yeah, I mean, he had a start where he gave up 7 earned and 2 dongs, still struck out 5. He had a start where he gave up 8 earned and 10 hits, still struck out 4.
Yeah, so they let him pitch longer than most guys.
Yeah, it's going to have to be an injury.
Mm-hmm.
Rangers and Angels. 5-run implied total for the Rangers, 3.9 for the Angels. John Gray going for Texas. Reed Detmer's going for the Angels. 26% ownership coming to John Gray at 6,900. He is the basically third, but tied for second in ownership with Kevin Gausman. Is $6,900 John Gray your preferred paydown option?
He's right up there. Probably so, if I were answering that question. Now, he's not a guy I really love rostering, but he's just too cheap, man. And DFS is a game of prices. So in baseball, it doesn't matter as much as in other sports. But this is a guy with too much strikeout upside to be this cheap. There's still reason for his price point to drop from like 8K to 6,900. That said, his strikeout rate this year is low for him. So if you're buying into that, like I could see why he's going over owned, but it's tough at this price point, knowing who he's been as a pitcher in the past, knowing the spot is pretty good. It's not great, but it's pretty good. The Angels strike out a lot and they don't have too much that'll scare you outside of Ohtani, of course. So I get why Gray is getting that ownership. When you see his strikeout rate on paper this year, though, it really scares you, not going to lie.
It is the only thing giving me pause, but I have 37% of Gray right now. I am more than okay with it. To me, very clearly, like if you need a pay down pitcher, this is the direction you're going. 6,900 is just a silly price tag.
Yeah, he's just not priced for who he is. Go ahead.
No, he should be 8. I mean, he should be the same price as Detmers.
Yeah, 8K. Definitely. He definitely shouldn't be like, I mean, Detmers is in a much worse spot too. I'm with you there. It's crazy. You can pay 15K combined for Paxton and John Gray.
Yeah. And you're going to add whatever bat you want after that.
Mm-hmm.
Do you like Detmers at all?
Not really. Texas is another team. I don't want to go out of my way to pick on them unless it's a pitcher I really trust. And Detmers isn't that guy. He's got, decent strikeout. He's got good strikeout stuff. And the first time or two through the lineup, he seems to be pretty good, but that's about it. And he does strike out a lot. I get it at 8K. He's probably too cheap for his strikeout upside. It's just such a tough spot, in every other regard.
John hit us with the super chat, said, took down a $4.20 max on DK last night. Second win in 2 weeks using the Sims tool. Always appreciate the insight, guys. I saw that one this morning. Was very happy to see it. It's always interesting. You see a guy in YouTube chat named Sean that had a victory, and you're immediately usually dubious. But this man does not have Sean V's name, a man that is a perpetual loser in all things in life. This Sean is a success story across the board, including twice in 2 weeks. So congratulations to Sean on the dub.
I was listening this morning for a little bit, and when you got riled up about him giving you shit about misspeaking, I totally am with you on that one. You obviously know that those guys don't play for whatever team it was, Detroit or whatever.
Yeah. By the way, I spoke that one into existence. Torkelson homered.
Twice.
Oh, I forgot he hit another one. Yeah. Which is not a good home run for me on a short slate because I didn't have the Tigers.
Same.
I need a couple more Rockies runs. I'm hiding right now in 16th, but I don't think that I'm going to be able to, no matter what happens, run down Nerdy Tenor or Broflex. So, woof. Anyway, thanks, Tigers. Bats here. Rangers are 6% owned in the aggregate. Angels only 3%. Do you find yourself getting to Texas against Detmers? Do you want to get to the Angels against the ownership of John Gray?
Texas looks better from just a overall standpoint. They're a much better offense. They're sixth in top stack in our top stack tool. Right behind the White Sox, getting significantly less ownership. As far as top value percentage goes, they're low, so it's hard to fit these guys, especially the guys you really want. They do have some spend down options, like towards the lower half of their lineup. Detmers isn't a guy that I want to go out of my way to pick on, but he's not a guy I'm afraid to use bats against. There's a play on talent for me. Like if you're playing Texas, you're playing them because they're really good and you can play them any day. This isn't a particularly bad spot for them. Not a smash spot either. So I like Texas. I just don't know if I want to spend the price tags that it's going to cost to get them.
I don't have much. 7-5 mans. I'm basically neutral overall. Get into a little bit more Mitch Garver if he's in the lineup. I don't know if that's the case or not. I haven't looked at any additional lineups if they've come out since we've been on the show. Oh, yeah, we've gotten 1, 2, 3, 4. We've gotten 5. So I liked Mitch Garver before this. I assume I still like Mitch Garver now. I also don't have much Angels, but if Shohei Ohtani is 5% owned today, I don't care how much John Gray I'm getting. I would like to have a little bit more of Shohei Ohtani. There's enough salary out there, whether you're rostering White Sox or you're going to someone like Mackenzie Gore to pay down. I think there's enough salary out there to use Ohtani if he's 5% owned.
This is definitely a spot like an MLB DFS I like to get to. Gray isn't a bad pitcher, but he's really only getting ownership because of the price tag. If he were $1,000 more, he wouldn't get ownership like he is now. So the Angels in that regard are interesting because his price tag doesn't make him any more likely to succeed today than he otherwise would. So I think the Angels are, quote unquote sneaky here. They're not getting a lot of love at all. They're middle of the pack in top stack percentage. They're, getting a little bit less ownership than they probably should. This is not a team that's that desirable to stack right now, especially with Trout out of the lineup. But like you said, Ohtani looks like one of the top bats on the slate, especially against the Gray ownership.
Okay. We don't really have the time for what I'm about to do, but I'm going to do it anyway because that's how I operate. 8 game. Hit us with the question in chat. Who was the hottest TV celebrity in the 90s? Now, before the show started, we talked about our ages. We are the same age within 6 months of each other. So we had the same TV experience, assuming you had TV when you grew up. Could be no. TV. I have people in my life that answer is no. So that could be the case. Hottest TV celeb for you?
For me, or is it just like who was considered? Because I was going to say.
Well, I mean, if you've got like a really weird answer and it's like Mr. Rogers or something, then we probably want to dig into that. But I assume we're going to be in like the same ballpark.
Well, I was going to say, I think when I hear that question, I think most people would say Pamela Anderson. That's not necessarily for me.
I think she would be, if this were Family Feud, final answer type shit, I think that she would be the most popular answer. I think the only other answer, and Donnie Baseball said it, I don't know if anybody else said it, I think Jennifer Aniston would be close as well. But I don't find her hot the same way Pam Anderson is hot.
What about like the Tiffany Amber Thiessens and Jennifer Love Hewitts of the world? Because that's where my mind goes to.
So Jennifer Love Hewitt would be my answer, I think.
That's such a tough question. I used to love Jenny McCarthy.
Sure.
Man.
Tiffany Amber Thiessen isn't my answer. Kelly Kapowski is.
Yes, I think that I
didn't love her as much as cigarette smoking Valerie Malone on 90210. I was a Kelly Kapowski guy. So I needed the character to continue to exist. God, 90s Mariah Carey is a great shout too. I love that. Honey video, Mariah Carey. Yeah. I think that's still 99. Used to
love 90210. Make me watch it. I was not a big 90210 fan. It was just like I felt like it was a little bit before my time.
Sure. My mom would watch Melrose Place in 90210. So I watched those way more than I should have at that age. I like the shout from Brockstar here. Nikki Cox in Unhappily Ever After. Sleeper that is going to go underrepresented in the future because it didn't go well after that. But yeah. Elijah Cuthbert That's another great shout.
Man,
I like
90
it.
chicks just hit different because that's like when we grew up.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It hits different. All right. All right. We're going to the Royals and Mariners. 3.9 run implied total for the Royals. 5.3 for the Mariners. I held that one together as well as I could have. Alec Marsh going for Kansas City. Luis Castillo going for Seattle. Castillo, 9,600, 21% owned here against Kansas City. A lot of strikeouts to be had. And this is a park that neutralizes power. How do you feel about Luis Castillo?
I like him here. I mean, he's too cheap. The ownership isn't really there. I mean, it's there, but he's not getting more ownership than the other guys we talked about. I don't really understand that. He doesn't look particularly better than those other guys, Gausman, Snell, etc. But I think he certainly looks in the same range as them. I think he looks good here. Kansas City has been playing good ball recently. So I think that we have to give a little bit of credit to them for finally playing to where their talent maybe should be. That said, it's still not like a particularly good offense outside of the top guys. So Castillo looks good here. Great ballpark. Yeah, again, like I said, I don't really see much of a difference between him and the other top guys, but certainly in play for me. If I have 9,600, I would be more than happy to play him.
So would I. Oddly, I expected to have him. The park usually plays up really well for me, and I do get to some pitching. But I have Kershaw, Castillo, Nola, Morton, and Paxton. Ignoring salary, as all basically the same guy. Well, if that's the case, I'm going to get to more Paxton and more Morton just because they're cheaper than Luis Castillo. Any lineup that I had that had Luis Castillo in it, I would be pumped because I think it's a fantastic spot. And I think it's a situation where he's not going to run into too many problems because of power. But I don't have him. And I just want to be honest with everybody. I do not have Luis Castillo in the way that I would want to. But that is not me advocating against him. If you make a lineup and you put Luis Castillo in it, I think you'll feel pretty good about it.
Yeah, same. I guess just in thinking about it a little more, the reason that he's not getting more ownership is because he's 500 less than Snell. And Snell is the guy who's getting a lot of love. So I get that. Castillo looks good in his own right. Seattle, now our top stack on the board.
Are they really?
Yeah, just them and the Cubs like keep teetering, but they're both like in the 13s.
Okay, I just refreshed it now just so we have it because I was about to read off of their stuff. Okay, so number 2 in top stack, number 2 in top value. I had a number 2 in ownership, either first or second in basically everything here for Seattle against Alec Marsh. I know we don't need to talk about Marsh. How do you feel about Seattle?
They look good. Yeah, again, now they're number 2 again. So like I said, they're teetering. Seattle looks great here. This is my biggest problem with the White Sox. I'm going to play a chalky offense that's kind of cheap. Give me the Mariners all day over the White Sox. Just a better offense. They've got guys you actually want to roster. Yeah, Seattle looks great here. Now, the ownership is there, so you're not like getting sneaky with them. The Cubs, based on our tools, look like the better tournament stack. The Cubs are a lot more expensive, though. So Seattle probably looks like the top stack on the board as far as everything is concerned. Value, top stack percentage, all the above.
I'm a little under just because they are pulling heavy ownership, but I do have 16 5-mans of the Mariners. So it's not a team that I'm getting away from by any means, but I am a little bit more balanced. So now we have to have this conversation because I know the reason that I'm not getting to Luis Castillo. It's because I'm getting to the Royals. They are 15th in top stack. They are 3rd in top value, and they are essentially unowned. Luis Castillo this season versus lefties. He has thrown more pitches to lefties this year than righties, by the way. 1,300 of them, in fact. While he does strike out 29%, 222 ISO, 223 X ISO. If he's not striking people out, it appears that he's giving up quite a bit of power. I don't know if that's going to be neutralized by the fact that he's playing in Kansas City or not, but I am getting to the Royals, in particular, the top of their order. More importantly, someone like Michael Massey, MJ Melendez, those two guys really stand out to me. Massey for the price, a $2,800 second baseman against a pitcher that has had some trouble with lefty power. I love that if you're trying to buy a free home run. Similarly for Melendez, certainly has the power. Kyle Isbell has some power in the 9-hole if that's a direction you need to go. And I'll take my chances with Witt and Perez from a power perspective against Castillo. I don't love this, but I am taking up Adam's mantle. I'm going to the Royals.
Yeah, I heard you talk about this morning, and this is not a stack that like jumps off the board because they're in a great spot. No. But everything you said makes a lot of sense. Like the biggest thing about them, which I think looks really good is that they fill premium positions. So
Yeah.
you talked about catcher, Salvador Perez, Maxey at second, Witt at short. The only guy that's expensive is Witt. I mean, Perez is now under 4K, so it's not a good stack on paper against Castillo. But we've seen it with KC like a bunch recently, actually. When they score runs, they've been hitting home runs and running. Like they've got guys in their lineup that will run. So again, I don't love Kansas City because I never want to, pick on Castillo, but I see the tournament winning upside there. And like compared to a team like the Nationals, give me the Royals all day.
Yeah, to me, the Royals are a 150 maxer team. This is not something you're like rolling into single entries feeling great about.
Well, if you do, you'll be like the only one that played them.
Oh yeah, when it works, you're solo top because you're not going to have a lot of people hanging out with you. That's for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Anything else for Royals or Mariners?
Not for me.
Then we're going to go to the Padres. 4.5 run implied total taking on the Orioles at 3.5. Blake Snell for San Diego. Dean Kramer for Baltimore. Snell is 40% owned at 10,100. This is the guy that I have the most of. I think he's pretty clearly the top pitching option for today. Do you share the same outlook on Blake Snell?
I do. I mean, I don't love the match. Baltimore's good, but as I mentioned earlier on, I much prefer facing them with lefties than righties. Their lineup just sets up better against righties, especially with a guy like Gunnar Henderson, who has struggled against lefties in his first, time up in the bigs. He's been, amazing against right-handed pitching. So that's a nice boost. Snell, his problem is walking guys, right? As far as the strikeouts go, he's right there with Gausman as the highest on the slate. I prefer the matchup for Snell more. He's cheaper than Gausman. Yeah, he's the top spend-up guy. I will say, though, like, it's really close for me between him and Gausman. I do like those guys more than Castillo, especially because as far as Castillo is concerned, I'm with you. I see him similar as, like, the Paxtons of the world. So as far as the top two guys, it is Snell and Gausman for me, but it's close.
Big-time strikeout prop on Snell today, too, somewhere around 8.5, juice slightly to the under. So that is the biggest number that you're going to see out there today. Do you want to get to Dean Kramer at all?
Another Jew, so there's that to like about him. Other than that, not really. No, this is just a tough spot.
I put that in the negative column.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's neither negative nor positive. Just calling it out. That's that filter. That's that filter we were talking about before the show.
I can't help myself there. It didn't matter what you could have said the opposite. I would have said the opposite again. I can't help it.
Oh, that's funny. No, though. I mean, San Diego, they've been very disappointing this year, and their lineup sets up better against lefties, funny enough, as opposed to Baltimore's. But nah, like, they don't strike out a ton. They're really good. They're really hard to get to as a stack, but Kramer is just almost impossible to get to on this slate with so many good arms going.
And unsurprisingly, 78 degrees today in San Diego. No weather issues, I assume, because of Dean Kramer.
Yeah, right. Our top pitcher tool would say that Kramer looks good in tournaments, like 7% chance to be in a top two pitcher, only 1% ownership. But every pitcher behind Gore is like that. It looks the same, basically.
Yeah, like Dean Kramer shouldn't be 1%. He should be 5% owned. But on those margins, I'm good. And it's San Diego on the opposite side. I don't love getting to them because I think Kramer is a solid enough pitcher. But if you want to buy talent, San Diego is a decent way to do it. It's just incredibly expensive. They're the unowned version of the Braves because they're expensive but difficult to get to. And
they're even more expensive than the Braves now with Alves out of the lineup. Like they did get to Flaherty last night, but we're not like using them because of that. And they're really expensive, so they're hard to get to.
Yeah, I don't have much.
Same.
You want to get to any Tatis, Soto, Machado, Bogarts, by all means. Those guys work in every lineup you ever want to build.
Yeah, for
Orioles
sure.
bats? Do you want to attack Snell at all? Is that do you want to zig while everybody else zags type thing?
Not really. I mean, the thing with Snell is he does put guys on base, but he allows such little contact that it's like really hard to get to him. You have to hope for the allowing guys on base and then the home run, which can happen. Baltimore's got guys that, can do that. If I were playing 150, I'd probably just want them in my pool because of the ownership as Snell's getting. But on that note, like every time you're getting one of these teams in your pool, that's lessening another good team you want to get. So Baltimore, they're like in play because Snell is getting ownership, but on paper, there's nothing to like about them except that they're a good offense and it's baseball.
Are you ready to close this one out?
Let's do it.
The Los Angeles Dodgers have a 5.1 run implied total taking on the Milwaukee Brewers. We've got Clayton Kershaw going for the Dodgers, Wade Miley going for the Brewers. Let's just get this one out of the way quickly. Any interest in Wade Miley on today's slate? 6,600 against the Dodgers.
No, I mean, no.
Correct answer. So we'll keep it moving from there. Clayton Kershaw, 15% owned, 9,900. Didn't go as deep as you would have loved to see in his first start back. I'm assuming he's not really limited in any way if things are going well. What do you want to do with Kershaw?
I like the spot for him. Milwaukee is atrocious against lefties. They strike out a ton. But while I agree with you, I don't think he's quote unquote limited. I don't think he's going to be pushed like at all. So,
yeah.
Depending on how he's doing, like could really affect how long he pitches in this game, which is usually the case. It's just tough for me to get there. Like when he's a little bit more expensive than Castillo, he's a little bit less expensive than Snell. He's priced with those, top four. He's getting the least amount of ownership, which I do like because it is a great spot. You just don't have a lot of wiggle room here. Like if he struggles a little bit, it's going to be hard for him to get there just because, what did he throw 67 pitches last time out? I would be surprised if he throws more than 90.
Yeah, me too. 85 feels about right for him at this point.
Sure.
Like they have no incentive to push
None.
him. But I don't even think that has anything to do with the injury. Like I think that's just sort of anything right now. There's no reason to make him go out and throw 105. Like I just don't think that's ever in the cards.
I agree. And a second start back certainly doesn't help that cause.
No, it doesn't. So let's talk Dodgers bats then. They are 8th in ownership, 6th in top stack. They are obviously expensive for most of the lineup. A lot of talent on this Dodgers team. Lump them in with the Padres, I guess. Pseudo lump them in with the Braves. What do you do here with the Dodgers against Wade Miley? Because the park certainly plays up power.
Might be the only time all year you see them below the White Sox in top stack percentage. Just not used to seeing that. That kind of tells me all I need to know. Like they are a good contrarian stack because they're the Dodgers and they're really good. But that's about all they are. Like they don't necessarily look great on paper at their price tags. Miley's the prototypical guy you don't really want to use in DFS, but he doesn't give up a ton of power. So he's not a guy like you want to go out of your way to use bats against. That said, like, of course, Mookie Betts, who is the one guy getting a little bit of ownership. Freeman destroys everyone, lefties included. So, sure, if you want to go there. JD Martinez is back in the lineup, has, notoriously smashed lefties. So I get it, but it's not like, I understand why they're only getting a little bit of ownership because they're really expensive and they don't look elite on paper like they often do.
I wish I had more of this Dodgers team. I have too much of garbage today, so I'm hoping it's one of those flipped on its head type slates and some trash team runs you to victory because that's kind of what I'm looking at right now because I don't really have much of the Dodgers. I certainly don't have the Brewers here against Kershaw. I don't see a ton of upside. If you want to one-off some of these guys for free homers, I think that's reasonable. Somebody like Willy Adames for 4,600. If you want to check off a shortstop spot where power does play up in LA, I could see it. Although for Kershaw, that's probably playing right into his hands. Kershaw so far this season, let's make sure I get it here. 151 x ISO to righties with a 30% K rate. So maybe you're looking for somebody like Christian Yelich today. Either way, I don't want much of Milwaukee. I don't expect to have much of this game, but I hope that I can somehow soak up a couple extra Dodgers.
Yelich is actually, I haven't looked at it, but I know from the past he has dominated Kershaw, I want to say, in limited samples.
There we go.
I will say, it's interesting. This is a fun slate because you have the White Sox pulling more ownership than the Blue Jays, Phillies, Padres, and Dodgers combined.
One of those teams is going to have a big offensive day.
I agree. And their big offensive day, I know the wind's blowing out in Wrigley. It's just most of the time a lot better than the White Sox big offensive day.
Anything else you want to add for this slate?
No, man, it's been fun.
It has been fun, and it's going to stay fun, folks. MLB Live Before Lock coming up next. Thanks to Matt for being here with me. It was a great show. We gave you the goods for an hour, but you're going to get another hour of this for MLB Live Before Lock. Thanks to Sleeper for being the sponsor. Thanks to Jordan Klein for being the producer behind the virtual glass. Good luck, everybody. We'll talk to you later.
Yo, it's that time of week again. Stokastic Hall of Fame. Time to induct all of you fine people into the Stokastic Hall of Fame. Give away some free months of Stokastic Plus Platinum. Well, $120 value there. And all you got to do to get involved in the action, get your free month, get here up on the board so we can do the bragging for you. Download the Stokastic Avatar at stokastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. DraftKings, FanDuel, doesn't matter. And then finish top 3 in a field of 5,000 or more. Doesn't matter if it's the quarter arcade, the dollar, or something big. Tweet your wins with the screenshot to us at Stokastic HOF. When you do, you'll get that free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You're getting the Hall of Fame. Let's get to it for this week. Kicking it off with John Bryan. Took it home. Finally. Thank you guys for all that you do. $1,000. There you go. Solo shot. 1K to first. John taking it down with the Stokastic Avatar. And Colby Evans. Shout out to the man, Matt Gajeski. This is true. He's the preseason pioneer. We all know that. Matty G, your preseason projections are a must. Every single season. Find them over at Stokastic.com, by the way. Thank you for your hard work and dedication to the deep dive that is the NFL preseason. There's still an edge. Congrats, Colby. You love to see it, man. $1,000. Little preseason win there. Hey, preseason money's pretty big right now. And then our own CEO, Tom Kennedy, $50,000 and $5,000 on the same day. MLB DFS comeback is complete. Quit playing MLB a few years back. Loved projections and game theory, but couldn't compete with the software guys and their sims. So we set out to level the field and elevate sports over software with Stokastic Sims. Never had so much fun playing DFS. Congrats, Tom. CEO taking down 55K. How about Ron? He's got a $1,000 win. Hall of Fame, baby. Lock me in. Also, rocking the Stokastic Avatar. See how easy this is? Congrats, Ron. Standing firm. Getting that bankroll for the NFL season. Great time to do so. Huge thanks to the lineup generator. Such an awesome tool. And then we've got our own Josh Engleman, the absolute best way to wake up. Fell asleep 15 minutes before the Muncie home run. This freak can fall asleep when he's sweating 50K. But Josh takes home 50K. Big shout out to our boy and my co-host, Josh Engleman. And Forrest, to close this one out, just snuck into the top 3 using the tools, $600 to TH, $1,800, $600 win in the four-seamer. Congrats to all of you guys. Remember, download the Stokastic profile picture at stokastic.com/avatar. Use it wherever it is you play. Tweet your wins to us at Stokastic HOF. Get that free month, $120 value. Get in the Hall of Fame, and we'll catch you back here next week for the next one. Peace.
What is happening, everybody? Wednesday night. Myself, Neil Orfield, about to break down tonight's MLB show. Top pitchers, top stacks. We got everything we're going to be talking about for the slate today. As you guys come in, if you could do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We are sponsored tonight by Sleeper. And if you guys haven't taken advantage of Sleeper, we've got another free square from them over today. So we've got Sleeper. They've had, different kind of offers that they have, once, twice a week, where it's stuff that you guys want to be taking advantage of for today. Last I looked, the over-under, Jordan, correct me if this has changed, but Kevin Gausman over 2.5 strikeouts. They've had, it was a social media promotion where for the amount of engagements that they got on Kevin Gausman was going to correlate to how far they dropped his K-prop. So if you guys want to get the best value anywhere in the prop market today, go download Sleeper, use the promo code Stokastic when you download the app. You're going to get up to a $100 bonus on your first deposit and get access to over 2.5 strikeouts for Kevin Gausman. You're not going to find too many deals better than that. So Kevin Gausman over 2.5 strikeouts over at Sleeper. Got a link below that you could use to download the app as well. Neil, what's happening? How was your slate last night?
Last night, oh man, I don't even remember. How did it go last? I'm just, all I can remember is the day slate, which is still going on, which currently I'm making money. I must not have done that well, or would have remembered it. I don't think that I lost a significant amount of money. I honestly cannot remember what happened last night. Do you remember your last night's slate?
It was pretty neutral. Pitchers, as we were kind of speculating yesterday, were pretty difficult to nail down for the slate yesterday. Offense, though, I was really heavy on the Diamondbacks. They crushed yesterday. I mean, Coors Field as a whole was really high scoring last night. The exact same thing is happening right now, where there's a whole bunch of runs being scored at Coors Field. So last I had checked, that game was 8-7. Now it is 9-7 in the ninth inning. So another high scoring game at Coors Field. But we're not going to talk about Coors Field today. It's not on the main slate. So we're going to have non-Coors spots to talk about. Eight games, which is kind of my favorite ideal size baseball slate. This is really like the sweet spot for me where I've historically been the most profitable. So excited to play this one and break it all down with you. And also, if you guys ever want to check out the rest of our content in podcast form, go check out the Stokastic Daily Fantasy Podcast Network, because we're going to have some exclusive fantasy football content there coming up for the football season. So stuff you're not going to be able to find anywhere else, not on the YouTube channel, not on our website. It's going to exist on the podcast channel. So go check that out. And we'll have more information on that in the coming days and weeks here. Neil, what are your overall thoughts on this 8-game slate? Any big picture takeaways before we start talking about the individual pitchers and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, I love that it is not a Coors slate. I think that it's a lot more fun than typical Coors. And even looking at the top stacks, we have 3 stacks near the top that are all 11 to 13% chance of being the top stack. I think it's fun that none is standing out. We've had these Diamondback slates where they have a 25% chance of being the top stack, and it's been kind of are we just going to play the Diamondbacks, or are we not going to play the Diamondbacks? I feel like here we actually have options, some and even beyond those that are in the double digits top stack odds. We have plenty of teams that are 7, 8, 9% chance as well. So I love that we can spread it out a little bit today.
Yeah, and at pitcher today, it's funny. We actually have a smaller slate, but infinitely better pitching options today, because yesterday, just absolute total dog shit at pitching. And today we got some pretty good options. We've got Luis Castillo on the slate. We've got Blake Snell. We've got Kevin Gausman. So you've actually got, the potential AL Cy Young winner in Kevin Gausman. He's, I believe right now, second in the AL Cy Young odds, just trailing Garrett Cole. And then Blake Snell, second in the NL Cy Young odds, right behind, who is he? Oh, right, Zach Allen, right behind Zach Allen. So you got real quality pitchers to talk about. And by the way, we should also hit on a general strategy question from Charles Moran. Charles wants to know, is it possible to win a FanDuel GPP without stacking? Yes, but harder. So here's why, right? At any given time, if you just happen to hit on 8 hitters that homer, and then you get the nuts pitcher, although the pitcher isn't going to matter in terms of stacking, then yeah, of course, anything is possible.
Yep.
In the great words of Kevin Garnett, anything is possible to win a GPP. But here's why it's so much easier to actually stack and have an upside, because all the players are correlated, right? So if you get the first hitter in the lineup, gets on base, what does that mean for the second hitter in the lineup? Number one, he's got a better chance getting an extra at bat over the course of the game. Also, everybody that gets on base creates extra RBI opportunities, extra run scoring opportunities. So it's just a lot easier when you have all your players that are correlated. It's a lot easier to pick out individual teams that are going to score a bunch of runs than pick out a bunch of individual hitters that are going to homer. So I have only played stacks in MLB for as long as I've played MLB DFS. It's also just, if you look at some of the data in terms of large field tournaments, it's something you're going to see all of the top players doing because it's just what makes the most sense in terms of correlation. Do you have anything else to add to that, Neil?
Yeah, no, I think that is spot on. It's so hard to predict 8 one-offs. Like, it's just like an 8-leg parlay, as opposed to, you just want to limit the number of things you need to get right, and you can do that by stacking teams. I will add that because I tilt about this all the time, that last year the best I did in the main GPP was 3rd place behind two unstacked lineups from the same user. But I mean, I say unstacked, but it was really that user was not forcing the stack, but they still ended up with like 3 Giants on each lineup because the Giants were in cores. So the two that beat me actually did have 3 Giants, so they had a 3-man stack at least. But yeah, that tilted me pretty early on last MLB season.
Yeah. So once again, possible, anything is possible. It's kind of like too, like MMA DFS, where people say, should I stack fights? No, you shouldn't. You shouldn't stack fights in MMA. It doesn't mean it can't work out, but in general, negatively correlated strategy. So baseball here, go ahead and try to get as many players from the same team combined as possible. On FanDuel, that's 4-man stacks, DraftKings, 5-man stacks. And now we're going to break down some of those favorite stacks, and of course, starting with the pitchers who want to go along with them. And Neil, let's start at the high end, because we have, number one, it's where I typically start, but we also have actually good pitchers to talk about on the high end. And here's how good the pitchers are today. They're so good that I didn't even mention that Clayton Kershaw is on the slate.
I know, I was going to say.
There are some concerns with his pitch limit and whatnot, coming off of a couple starts back now from the injured list. But on the high end, here are the 4 pitchers that we have that I'll put in their own tier as far as pay up options. Kevin Gausman, who's projected for 27% ownership at 10,500. Blake Snell, who's projected for 33% ownership at 10,100. Then we have Luis Castillo at 9,600, projected for 21% ownership. Clayton Kershaw, he is 9,900. Going to be some issues with pitch count restrictions, but he is 14.4% owned. Of these 4 pay-up options, do you have a favorite?
So actually, I was able to run the Sims tool before the show today, so I can tell you who I'm playing currently. Currently, I have the most of Kevin Gausman. I have 33% Gausman, followed by 23% Luis Castillo. I didn't get to a lot of the other high-end pitchers. I guess got 16% Kershaw. So that's who I'm playing based on the Sims, which is, I didn't do anything to boost them or anything. I just put in, their expected ownership, and that's kind of what I ended up with. If I'm looking at the top pitchers tool, my favorite would probably be Gausman. Like, he's not that much more expensive than the others, and he has the highest top 2 pitcher odds. He's lower owned than Blake Snell. I think I preferred the matchup with Philly over the matchup with Baltimore. I guess, Luis Castillo has Kansas City, which is kind of nice. It'd probably be between Gausman and Luis Castillo, just looking at the top pitchers tool. Luis Castillo also pretty neutral in terms of ownership versus top 2 pitcher odds, and he is cheaper, better matchup with Kansas City. So I'm almost talking myself into Castillo ahead of Gausman, but I have more of Gausman, and he is the top in terms of top 2 pitcher odds. Who do you like at the top?
Yeah, it's going to be Gausman for me, as well as my number 1 overall favorite. I'm also doing another set of lineups that I'm running through our Sims right now, just taking into account the most recent ownership update we have. So in like 5 seconds, I'm going to know exactly what my ownership is going to be, at like a more specific level. But I'm fairly sure, based on what I was running before, that Gausman is going to be the pitcher that I overall get the most of. He's just been awesome this year. I know the matchup against the Philadelphia Phillies is not necessarily ideal, right? There are other pitchers that we have on the slate that are going to be in easier matchups. But if you just look at the overall numbers for Gausman, I think that he's been as good as it gets this year as a starting pitcher. He was great last year as well, but now it seems like he's really, really hitting his peak. So overall, the numbers for Gausman this year, 3.04 ERA, 2.72 FIP. And what's great about him from a fantasy standpoint, he's striking out 32.5% of the hitters that he faces. So there was a point in time when he was younger in his career, where we would see the strikeout stuff on occasion, but it would come and go. Now he's just really consistently been a pitcher that we see big strikeout stuff from. His walk rate is also below his career average. So there aren't really any negatives here from Gausman. And he's even gotten unlucky this year. He's a 333 BABIP. Last year as well, 363 BABIP. So even with some luck not really going his way, he's produced really, really good results. So Kevin Gausman on the high end, I am in agreement with you. I think that he is the guy to get to. And now that I have my Sims done running, I can tell you guys exactly the exposure that I got to him after I favorite my top 150 lineups. And I have Kevin Gausman in 34% of my lineups, my most rostered payout pitcher on the entire slate.
Nice. And I think I had 33%. That was Gausman. So yeah, we're actually very close there. I think I'm going to run a new crunch because we got the Dodgers lineup and Outman is apparently not in it. I don't know that I actually have any, but we'll see if that changes anything.
Yeah, it was it's funny because I was talking with Lee before the show started about how the lineup, like we're trying to figure out what the Dodgers lineup is supposed to be, and we're kind of having a back and forth about it. So he updates the Dodgers lineup. We run the projections, and then the Dodgers lineup comes out right after that. And it was the exact lineup that he guessed it was going to be.
Wow.
But anyway, like I facilitated basically nothing because it ended up that like we kind of went back and forth, and the actual lineup came out 5 minutes later. With the Dodgers never do. I was really convinced. I was like, this is the lineup's going to come out after lock, and not the case. The Dodgers trolling me just ended up dropping the lineup right after we talked about it anyway. Do you have a pitcher on the high end who is your least favorite relative to ownership projections, all things being considered?
Yeah, it'd probably have to be Blake Snell. Has probably the worst matchup against Baltimore, getting 33% ownership with a 24% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. So, I mean, it'd be between Snell and Kershaw, I suppose. But Kershaw, we actually have some positive leverage on. What do you think the cap is for Kershaw? I mean, we have some pitch count concerns, but like, what are you Xing Kershaw out? Like, are you that nervous about him?
So last start he made, I did X him out. The reason I did it last start, and I'm fairly sure I was doing that show with Eric and we were talking through it, is that he was really popular on that slate. And what ends up happening, he pitches decently. He pitches 5 innings, gives up 1 run against the Colorado Rockies. He only threw 67 pitches that start, though. So ultimately, it's like he pitched fairly decently, but he scored 14 fantasy points. He was really expensive. Considering he threw 67 pitches last start, I'd say we're probably getting 80-ish out of him today. Right. Something else to consider as well is that this is a Dodgers team that, you know, if you look at FanGraphs, for instance, they have like a 90% chance to win the division. The goal of the Dodgers is not to maximize the amount of games they win in the regular season. The goal of the Dodgers is to win a World Series, and they're basically assured to make the playoffs at this point. So I think that there's a pretty good chance they're going to be cautious with Clayton Kershaw moving forward. So with that in mind, he's my least favorite pitcher on the high end. I have some exposure to him. I'm underweight to the field, though, and I might even end up lowering him a little bit more than what I have right now. I only have a handful of lineups with him. But like, what is the upside of him relative to the other pitchers we have, right? Because we have Gausman, we have Snell, we have Castillo. You kind of need Kershaw to outscore all of these guys. And if he's going to be capped at 80 pitches, I don't think it's super likely.
Yeah, no, I'm debating whether I'm just going to like cross him off the list, because even if he is like, if he's capped at 80 pitches, like that's, you know, seems about right. I feel like 80, that's like, he can maybe get through 6 innings potentially, but that like he'd have to be pitching really well. I guess the upside is there. It's like 6 innings, he could get, I don't know, 9-10 strikeouts. So maybe I'll keep him in.
Yeah. So he's my least favorite on the high end. And why don't we do a quick rank of these pitchers? High end, we got these 4 studs to look at. If you had to rank them 1 to 4, we've already given out our favorite and our least favorite. Who falls in the middle for you? And I'll do mine first. Also, I'll kind of figure out your thoughts. But for me, it is Gausman 1, Luis Castillo 2, Blake Snell 3, Clayton Kershaw 4.
That's my exact order.
There we go. All right, we're on the same page. I dig it. Let's get a little bit cheaper now, though. Not too much cheaper, but there are still good pitchers priced below these guys. We've got Aaron Nola at 9,000. Brutal matchup from against the Toronto Blue Jays, though. And then we've also got guys like Charlie Morton, 8,500 against this Yankees team, and what a disaster the Yankees are right now. If we're looking at all of the pitchers who are priced, let's say below Luis Castillo, but above 8,000. So we're talking Morton, we're talking Paxton, we're talking Reed Detmers. Are any of these pitchers priorities for you in any kind of way today?
Currently getting to 36% Charlie Morton. Yeah, I mean, I guess it helps that the Yankees are just not the Yankees right now. He looks good in the top pitchers tool. Doesn't look like I should be getting as much as I am necessarily, but coming in at 17% ownership, 17% chance of being a top 2 pitcher. The price is fine on Morton. So he's the one that I'm getting to the most of. I think I'm getting to a little bit of James Paxton also at 8,200. Yeah, I'm getting to 19% James Paxton. Seems like, I mean, he's obviously got the great matchup. He's got a decent price tag at 8,200. Almost surprised that I'm not getting more of James Paxton, but he does have a little bit of negative leverage in the top pitchers tool, 20% ownership, 15% chance to be in a top 2 pitcher. The matchup makes you feel a little bit safer about James Paxton, but yeah, I'm not getting to, I'm basically getting to exactly where the field is on Paxton. Aaron Nola coming in with a little bit of negative leverage, obviously a really tough matchup with Toronto. I would still like to play some Aaron Nola. I'm curious. I'm trying to find him in my sims. I don't think I got to a ton of Aaron Nola. I think I'd like, yeah, I only have 6% Aaron Nola, which kind of surprises me. I don't love it. It scares me a little bit. I think I'd like to get to a little bit more Aaron Nola than 6%, but does have a little bit of negative leverage in the top pitchers tool, 17% ownership, 15% chance. I'll be in a top 2 pitcher at 9,000. The price feels a little bit low on Aaron Nola, despite, even with the tough matchup with Toronto. I think I'd like to get there. So I might actually boost him if I, in my next run, still am getting to like single digit. I think I'd like to get it up to double digits of Nola also. Are you taking any big stands there?
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of exposure to Charlie Morton. He is actually, I have him in a little bit over 40% of my lineups, one of the most rostered players on the entire slate. So Charlie Morton, he's got this matchup against the Yankees team where even when the Yankees are rolling on all cylinders, there's a lot of strikeouts to be had in that lineup. Yeah. Like a lot of strikeouts to be had because the studs, guys like Aaron Judge, Giancarlo Stanton, even them, they swing and miss a lot when they're not hitting home runs. So I think it's a spot for Charlie Morton, who, by the way, in his own right, very, very good strikeout pitcher. Let's pull up Charlie Morton's numbers for the year. And he certainly had some starts where he's gotten hit hard and he's given up, runs in some starts. But overall for the year, he's had an outstanding season. Like I said, the strikeout stuff, always there's an upside for him. So Charlie Morton this year, 23.9% K rate. And then also, if you look at the numbers for Charlie Morton, he's a 3.71 ERA, which he's been a little bit lucky to have this year, if we're being honest. But still, I like the matchup a little bit more than I think most people might expect against the New York Yankees. And decent price point as well on Charlie Morton, as well as modest ownership. He's only 16% owned. So on a slate where there's a lot of options to choose from, kind of in that mid to upper range at pitching, I do like getting to Charlie Morton quite a bit. Sheet pitchers. We got a question in our Discord channel. One of the perks being a Stokastic Plus Platinum or signing up for any Stokastic package is you get access to our Discord channel. If you guys want to sign up for anything, there's a link below that's going to get you 50% off the first time you sign up. But Tim Lee wants to know, what are we doing with Mike Clevinger? He wants to know our thoughts on Mike Clevinger. Seems like he's getting to Clevinger a little bit. So Clevinger, who's projected for pretty much no ownership today. We've got him for 1% at $5,700 on the road against the Cubs. Here's the biggest issue that I have with Clevinger for today. The wind. This is a game in Chicago that's expected to be really windy. Appears there's going to be a lot of runs scored. So when I'm looking at my exposures, I get to a good amount of this game. And with that in mind, I mean, the field is as well, but I don't really love Clevinger here, especially considering the wind. I think there's a lot of downside with Mike Clevinger. Is he somebody you're getting to, though?
No, I currently don't have any shares of Mike Clevinger. I get it. He has a 12% chance of being a top 2 point per dollar pitcher at 1% ownership. So you can certainly make a case for Mike Clevinger, but currently I don't appear to have any exposure there.
Yeah, same page here. He's cheap. So something else too, though. There's so many good pitchers on the slate. You just need so much to break right for him. You need him to not get absolutely shelled by the Chicago Cubs. On top of that, you need him to actually pitch relatively well. And then you also need him to outpitch all these stud pitchers on the slate. So I get it if you're just looking at it from like a standpoint of the Cubs are expected to be 12.4% owned. We've got 4 popular teams on the slate: the Cubs, the Mariners, the Braves, the White Sox, all of them projected for north of 10% ownership. Of those teams, the one I get to the most of the chalky teams is the Chicago Cubs. So with that in mind, it's going to be hard for me to recommend Mike Clevinger as a value play that I think anybody should be getting to. But who are the value pitchers that you're getting to, if any, on this slate, Neil?
So first I want to say, so somebody in chat brought up Alec Marsh, and I realized that I no longer know how to get relief pitchers into my pool in Fantasy Cruncher. I used to know how to do this, and something changed, and I'm trying to figure out how to do it because I currently don't have it.
Okay, so let me tell you exactly how you do it. Yep. If you're in Fantasy Cruncher, you're going to see a column. Well, a drop-down menu that says columns. I was going to say a column that says columns. So there's a drop-down. This is also going to be good information for anybody watching who wants to know how to do this. So click on columns within Fantasy Cruncher, then go to additional options. Within additional options, you're going to see 2 check mark boxes. They say show all hitters, show all pitchers. What you want to do is select show all pitchers, and that is how you can get the relief pitchers or anybody who's expected to be, like a bulk pitcher in any kind of way. That's how you get them to show up in Fantasy Cruncher. But then also it's kind of valuable for, maybe there's a hitter that isn't projected to start that you think is going to start. You could also go show all hitters, and you could, give somebody a projection or put them in when they don't already. So that is how you go ahead and do that. Does that follow?
Yeah. Thank you for that. Yep. I'm able to do it now because I had not realized that when I was running my crunches, and he should be in my player pool. He is somebody that when I was doing the lineup generator earlier, I did get to some Alec Marsh. So I do want to make sure that he is in my player pool. And thank you for that call out, because I was not getting to any. He looks pretty good in the top pitchers tool. We have him at 1% projected ownership with a 27% chance of being the top value pitcher and a 6% chance of being a top 2 overall pitcher. So if I'm going to be playing a really cheap pitcher, I think Alec Marsh might be one of the first lineup going to. So I'm going to have to rerun my crunches, but I do think that he is, like, of the cheap guys, he is one name that you can definitely consider there. Mackenzie Gore looks pretty good at 6,000, coming in at 16% ownership, 24% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher, 10% chance of being a top 2 pitcher overall. I don't know that there are that many really cheap pitchers that I want to go to today. Let me see if there's any others that I am getting to in any, reasonable number. Do you have Alec Marsh? Are you playing any Alec Marsh today, Greg?
I built lineups with him. Did he show up in any of my best lineups though? Let's see. He did not. Nope, not playing Marsh. Not playing Marsh. I am underweight to the field on the Mariners going up against him. The Mariners are projected for, actually, I am about even with the field on the Mariners. I was underweight to them on my last run, but they're projected for 16% ownership, and I'm about close to the field on them. But once again, like, the issue I have with Marsh is kind of the same with something like Clevenger, where it's like, cool, I get that there is some leverage just from the standpoint of he's going up against a really popular offense, but you just need so much else to go well on this slate where we're so loaded at pitcher. So
true,
Marsh is not making it into my lineups today.
Okay. Mackenzie Gore, I am getting to 43% Mackenzie Gore. So I did not realize how much I was getting there when I was talking about him before. But yeah, I'm getting to a ton of Mackenzie Gore. Makes sense. As I said, 16% projected ownership, 24% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. Probably don't want 43%. I'm interested to see if, when I add Marsh to my player pool, if I'm going to end up getting less of Gore in my top 100 optimal lineups, but currently getting to a good amount of Mackenzie Gore. Are you getting too much Gore? Or I guess John Gray is also 6,900. Looks pretty interesting here against the Angels. Nice matchup there. 24% ownership, 20% chance of being a top 2 value pitcher. How much am I getting there? John Gray. I'm getting to 16% John Gray. So I'm actually a little bit below the field there.
Yeah. So no pitcher has won me more money this year than Mackenzie Gore. No pitcher has lost me more money this year than Mackenzie Gore, which I feel like I say on a lot of his starts now, because he's just such a high variance pitcher. He's always cheap because has a good start, has a bad start, has a terrible start, has a good start. So like, he's all over the place, but a lot of strikeouts this year for Mackenzie, like a lot. And I don't mean like a lot relative to his price point. He's a 26.7% K rate. Like, that's like a legitimately really high strikeout rate for a pitcher here in Mackenzie Gore, who has a matchup against a Red Sox team also who's not quite double digit owned, but is still a team that is the 5th most popular on the entire slate. So we just went through all the chalky offenses. The Red Sox are like one tier below those teams in terms of ownership. So you've got a pitcher in Mackenzie Gore who, when things are going well for him, he puts up, pretty big box scores. So if we look at Mackenzie Gore, Gore has a start, like, for instance, 2 weeks ago, he scores nearly 30 fantasy points against the San Francisco Giants. I remember that slate. It was a very good one for me, that start against the San Francisco Giants. But then last time out, I don't remember that slate against the Phillies. I do remember the slate against the Mets, though. I had a bunch from that start. He scored 3 fantasy points. That was a very bad slate for me.
Yeah.
So it's Mackenzie Gore giveth, Mackenzie Gore taketh away as well, because if you look at his box scores in Fantasy Cruncher, you are going to see a lot of green, a lot of red, like the Christmas tree all over the place when it comes to Mackenzie Gore. But at 6,000 as an SP2 on DK at, fairly modest ownership, he is a cheap guy. Like before, we're talking about guys like, Alec Marsh, for instance. I don't think he's likely to outscore the studs. There is a chance Mackenzie Gore actually could, because his good starts, we've seen him put up, like around 30 fantasy points this year because of the strikeout stuff.
Yeah. I still think like 43% feels, so that's what I'm getting to currently, feels a little bit too much to me for like a highly volatile pitcher like Mackenzie Gore. Like I'd like to be above weight to the field. I know, so you and I are in a Discord together with some DFS pros and some who like have been using simulations for a long while. And I thought it was interesting, like they were having a discussion yesterday, and I noted that somebody, a longtime pro, said that like generally it's generally agreed upon among like people who have been simming for a long time that you don't just play your top lineups. Like if you're getting to just like, your top 50 or top 150 highest EV lineups, and they're like all Padres stacks, for an example, they don't just play those top 150. They spread it out to like, mitigate risk a little bit. So I thought that was interesting because that's something that I've been doing naturally. So it was good to see that like that is what the pros have been doing, the ones who have been simming for a long time. So I think that this might be a spot where I see 43% Mackenzie Gore in my top lineups, and I think I'm going to cut it back just a little bit to mitigate some of that risk, because there's obviously a ton of risk that comes with playing Gore that much.
I want to play as much of the best ROI plays on each slate as I can, right? It doesn't mean that I want to get to, like 100% Mackenzie Gore, but like, why do I want to play lineups that are projected for a 10% ROI over lineups that are projected for a 30% ROI, right? I'm looking at the season as a whole. I don't care about individual slates. And by the way, most baseball slates, I'm going to lose. That's how baseball works, right? Sure. The slates I win, I want to win significantly. And I think that one way, I didn't see this conversation. I know we're in the same Discord. I know which one you're talking about, but I don't want to just play. I don't want to just play worse lineups knowingly because I want to mitigate my chance of losing money on any one individual day. Because like I said, if you ask me right now, am I building good lineups? I'm going to say yes. My lineups that I'm playing today are expected to profit in the long haul. But if you followed up and said, am I going to make money today? Yes or no? The safe bet would be no, not for this one individual slate, if that all follows. But I want to make sure that when I do win money, I'm making as much money as possible on these slates, because it is so hard to have those big upside days for baseball. So with that in mind, I think that Mackenzie Gore, all things being considered, is a better play today than John Gray, right? I don't just want to be like, I'm going to mitigate my risk by lowering my exposure to Mackenzie Gore and upping John Gray.
Okay, so I'll follow up by saying these are also guys who are playing higher volume than you or myself. So it might be like once you get to playing 5,000-10,000 on a slate, then maybe you want to be mitigating that risk more, like, because it's just a bankroll thing. Like you have to manage your bankroll to some extent too. If you're playing $5,000-$10,000 a day and you're playing these highest ROI lineups are also highly volatile, well, you can lose, $500,000 really quickly. Whereas you and I are playing, lower stakes and not quite as much at risk every day. So I think that we do have the ability to play more volatility in our lineup. So I think that's but it also sounds like you're not playing like 100% core either. So it's maybe this isn't a spot where you feel the need to cut back. To me, 43% is just a little bit much for my comfort zone.
By the way, I'm like right around 40%, and I'm totally cool with it. I don't think it's like so risky that like it's like impossible to go ahead and play, like 40% of Mackenzie Gore, especially because, like I said, I don't want to just play worse players than for the heck of it to minimize my risks today. I'm just going to go with as much of the best guys as I could possibly get to. Generally, how I'm approaching it. Something else I should note, though, also about our Sims tool, is that depending which contest you're playing in, you are going to get different results if you change the percentage to first payout. So there's the way that I play, like the $3 150 max is different than I would play the $15 150 max is different than I would play single entry. And a lot of it too is going to be like, if you go into our Sims tool, you could change the percentage payout to first place, which is going to have different payout structures, which greatly changes the kind of exposure you get. So if you went into this and you changed, like, I don't know, I assume that you're building lineups with probably like the 10% to first. Is that fair to guess, Neil?
10% to first, probably a little bit more. So I'm playing the mini max. Okay. Is that only 10%? The mega mini max?
The mega mini max is 10% to first. It's a $75,000 prize pool, $7,500 to first. So that is 10% to first for the $3 150 max. Whereas a lot of the other tournaments, like if I remember correctly, the $15 is 30% of the prize pool to first today. And that will really change the amount of exposures that we project to be optimal on any given slate.
Yeah, absolutely.
So just something else to consider as well, because if you are playing in tournaments where it's 10% to first place, you are going to get more clumped exposure to just the overall top options on given slate. And I do find that if you go ahead and you select like the 30% to first place, it is going to make your lineups a little bit more diversified in terms of what we are projecting to be optimal. All that aside, what other cheap pitchers do you like tonight?
Yeah, so I think that we've named the majority of the ones that I really have interest in, those being John Gray. As we both said, we're both playing a good amount of Mackenzie Gore. I am going to end up playing some Alec Marsh, I imagine, or at least I'm going to get him into my player pool. I'll see what the Sims actually do with my Alec Marsh, but I think I'll probably get to a little bit just because he was coming up in the lineup generator, which tells me that he's at least can make it into some good lineups. I don't think I'm playing a ton of anybody else. I'm curious. I'm getting to like the win game in Chicago. Like Assad looks okay. Clevenger they both look good in the top pitchers tool, but like ultimately, I'm not sure that I'm going to get there. Don't really want to play Wade Miley against the Dodgers. I don't really think there's anybody else that stands out to me as a great play here. Are there any others that you love here?
No, looking through my exposures, I'm mostly on the more expensive pitchers, so I'm going cheap. It tends to be Mackenzie Gore for today. But yeah, on the lower end, not really too many of the guys. I'm pretty underweight to John Gray as a pitcher. And also John Gray, he's had some success this year, but let me see how his numbers have changed over the course of the year, by the way, because John Gray's had a lot of good luck go his way. Also, I think John Gray is going to end up being super, super popular today. Yeah, so John Gray, 3.65 ERA, but 4.23 expected ERA, 4.1 FIP, which are not terrible marks. Just a little bit of good luck has gone his way. So that actually has balanced out a little bit over the course of the season. With that said, 278 BABIP, that is something we would expect to be worse. Here's the overall biggest issue I have with John Gray this year. His strikeout rate is at a really convenient time for my browser to close on me. Just over, I know off the top, just a little bit over 20% for the year, though. I don't know. I forget what the exact number is. I'll have to pull the numbers back up, but I know it's just slightly over 20%. Brees typically been a pitcher as a strikeout rate like 24, 25%. So with that in mind, I don't think there's a massive amount of upside for John Gray, at least not relative to his ownership. So John Gray is somebody who I am pretty well underweight to the field on. Not somebody who's like an outright fade for me, but on the low end, I really do like pivoting to Mackenzie Gore as opposed to getting to John Gray.
What, 20.8% strikeout rate for John Gray so far this year, after 25.7% last year, 24 points. So just way down from what he was the past couple of years.
Yeah. So like I knew I was like in the ballpark, just over 20%. So I think he's a pretty good cash game option for tournaments, though. He is somebody who I am coming in a little bit underweight to. I like getting to Mackenzie Gore for sure. Let's go ahead and look to make sure we don't have any other questions in Discord. And if we do have questions in Discord, we'll answer those, and then we'll build some lineups in the lineup generator. So Jordan, go ahead and pull those up. We also have some super chats to get to, so we'll answer those. Did Jose, which of these questions were answered on the last show, Jordan?
I don't think any of them were. Well, it seemed to me that none of them were, just based on he said that we missed him.
Because one of them says Josh as part of.
Also, shout out to Damien, by the way. Feels good to finally win. I just won the early slate single entry 6K chin music subtle brag. I just want to give the shout out to Damien there.
Yeah, congrats to Damien. Love to see anybody who's watching any of our content win any kind of money. Always like to see it. And don't forget, guys, if you ever win a tournament, make sure you have your Stokastic avatar as your avatar on DraftKings, FanDuel, and then tweet at Stokastic HOF, because then we could feature you in the Stokastic Hall of Fame. You get yourself 1 free month Stokastic Plus Platinum. So download the avatar and make it your picture over at DraftKings and FanDuel. But we do have a super chat here from Jose Morales. Jose, sorry I didn't get to this sooner. I actually thought a lot of these questions were pre-existing from the last show, but no problem. We'll answer it right now. He wants to know who our favorite plays are for DK tier. So Jose Morales, I've got this queued up right here, and we can walk ourselves through the DK tiers. Tier 1 is Ronald Acuna for me. Tier 2, Mookie Betts. Tier 3, Cody Bellinger. Tier 4, Julio Rodriguez. Tier 5, Nico Horner. Tier 6, Justin Turner. So a lot of exposure to that Cubs game. I really do like the Cubs team. I'm getting the most exposure to as a stack. So Jose, Hope that helps you make some money in tiers for today. And then Jorge wants to know, best low-owned stacks, and then can we tie again, Greg? Yeah, that would be nice, Jorge. Last year, we did have the slate where Jorge and I split first place with totally different lineups in the $15 on DK last year. What are the odds of that? Totally different lineups, and we had the exact same fantasy score. Favorite low-owned stacks. Let's see. If we have to pick out one or two of our favorite low-owned stacks, look at my exposures. I think one that makes a little bit of sense if we're going to be crazy contrarian, one that I'm overweight to the field to, the Baltimore Orioles, only projected for 2% ownership. Blake Snell is the most popular pitcher on the entire slate. So I do have 7% Orioles stacks today. So that is one team that I think makes a little bit of sense. If you do look at our top stacks tool, there's positive leverage there. 2% owned, 3% chance to be a top stack. What really stands out to me is that 33% ownership on Blake Snell. If I'm going to be a little bit underweight to the field to him, which I am, it makes sense to get some stacks against him as well. And the Orioles do have a pretty potent offense. So Baltimore is one for me. Neil, do you have a contrarian stack to give to Jorge as well?
Contrarian. So I'm playing a lot of the chalk, if I'm being honest. I mean, the Dodgers coming in at under 5% ownership look pretty good here. I think you can certainly go there. San Diego looks a little bit under-owned, 4% ownership, 5% chance of being the top stack. Don't know that I really want to go to the Angels. Yeah, probably. I mean, it's kind of boring. Like neither of them are all that like off the beaten path. But I think the Dodgers and Pods, you just go to the stacks that can put up, double-digit runs. And I think those are the teams that can do it against anybody. And
we got a follow-up super chat here from Damian Del Val saying, I want to thank you guys for the hard work you put in every day. I've been watching you guys for years. I learned strategy by watching the channel and hitting the likes. Appreciate you. We do appreciate you. And once again, congrats on your win earlier. Love to see when anybody goes and hits a tournament. I believe he said that he won the $5 single entry on the early slate was the tournament I think he said he took down. So congrats again, Damian. And thank you for the super chat. We do appreciate it. And also in Discord, Clyde chiming in saying he thinks that Baltimore seems too obvious against Blake Snell. I mean, they're 2% owned. Are they that obvious? The only team that's lower owned than them on the entire slate is Milwaukee against Kershaw, and then Philadelphia against Kevin Gausman. Even that's only by 0.2%. So I don't know. I'd call them obvious. It's not like the field is getting there in any kind of way. I think I understand what you're saying, though. You're saying that, like, relative to trying to find contrarian offenses, he understands why we would land on them. Yeah. And then Mr. Cool Cam wants to know what is our favorite contrarian stack on FanDuel. Yeah, Mr. Cool Cam. So if I'm looking at the FanDuel slate, one that makes sense to me, I'm going to go with the Texas Rangers against Reed Detmers. They are pretty reasonably priced on FanDuel relative to DraftKings, not quite exorbitant of price tags. And Reed Detmers has given up just an unreal amount of hard contact as of late. I know this because he's cost me on some slates. There were some times I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna crush today. I've got great lineups going. And Reed Detmers is pitching late. All I need is like 18 fantasy points out of him sitting gold setting. And it's like, oh, cool. He's -8 in the first inning. So Reed Detmers, something's off with him. I don't know if he's dealing with an underlying injury. I don't know if he's tipping his pitches, but something has led to him getting absolutely smashed, giving up all kinds of hard contact as of late. And we have them as one of the most under-owned teams right now on FanDuel. So 6% ownership for the Texas Rangers as a stack. We have them with 8.3% chance for the top scoring team. I like Texas over on FanDuel. As for other questions in Discord, Sick Mosh is saying for DK Cash, should he go Horner and then Hap Harris Hernandez, or follow the ownership to get Caballero to pay up, grab Acuna and J-Rob? So I think that if you are playing cash games, follow the ownership. I think that's something you generally want to be doing when possible, especially if you're in between two combinations. In tournaments, go with the less ownership. In cash games, go with the more ownership. So follow the ownership in cash games. I think that'll help you break any kind of ties you have. Let's go ahead and look at the lineup generator now. So I see that. Oh,
Chris Williams said that he sent us a super chat. I'm trying to find it. And then Jose Morales also said that he was waiting for his super chat.
So I see. I answered. Jose's was the tiers, which we answered.
Yeah, I don't have
anything. Chris, whatever. Chris, just leave your message in Discord, or sorry, in the YouTube chat, and we could answer it. It's not showing up at all on my screen for me.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either.
We do have King fucking Dash has left us a super chat, though. He says 2 must-play Cubs on FanDuel. So he wants to know who our 2 favorite Cubs are. One of them.
We each have to give him one.
All right. We each give one. That's how this game works. We each
Love
give
it.
out. Do you want to go first or second, Neil?
I want to go first because then I can just say Cody Bellinger.
Okay.
Must play.
So Neil is going with Cody Bellinger. I'm gonna go with Ian Happ. So it's funny. It's funny that because I have Ian Happ is the Cub I have the most exposure to, and Cody Bellinger is second. But you went with Bellinger, so I'll go with Happ.
Easy.
I'll go with Happ. Yeah, Cubs great team to target today. That is the team I'm getting the most exposure to overall. And Ian Happ and Cody Bellinger are the two players I get the most exposure to from the team. So King fucking Dash. Hope that helps you build out your lineups there. Shout out to Chris Williams, who did gift out some more YouTube memberships. And let me see what he asked. Let's see. Chris.
I will say Nico Horner actually like projects almost as well as Cody Bellinger, and he's eligible at second base and shortstop, and he's cheaper. So I'm not even sure I gave the answer. Like I said it before even really looking, because it's Cody Bellinger. He's going to project the best, but Nico Horner is probably a better answer there.
By the way, I don't see a question from Chris, but I know that it's related to the late slate. I just know because that's usually
that's true.
I know that's what. So let's
I figured he was going to call that Android guy a Muppet.
Yeah, just the big war of technology that's in the YouTube chat. So if we look at the night slate, which is only a 2-gamer, how about Neil? Pick one: stacks or pitchers. You could give your favorite one of the stacks. I'll give one of the favorite of the pitchers, whichever you prefer.
All right, I will give my favorite pitchers.
Okay. And then I'll rank the favorite stacks for Chris on the night slate.
Perfect. And is it DraftKings or FanDuel for Chris? I forget.
DraftKings.
Okay. All right. So then we've got Blake Snell and Clayton Kershaw are both on that night slate. So I'd say it's pretty obvious that those two are the two you're going to want to play the most. Maybe less obvious here. Wade Miley actually comes in he's not far behind Dean Kramer in terms of top 2 pitcher odds, 32% projected ownership. 32% chance of being a top 2 pitcher for Wade Miley, 38% for Dean Kramer. But Wade Miley only getting 20% projected ownership, Dean Kramer at 42%. So if I were going to rank these 4 pitchers, it would be Snell, Kershaw, Miley, and then Kramer.
So looking at the stacks, and by the way, stack exposure, very, very spread out for the night slate over on DraftKings. Oh, Chris Williams, by the way, following up saying it was not slate related. He was just actually saying thanks. All right, well, we appreciate you, but I know you play the night slate. I'm going to help you anyway. If I'm going through my favorite stacks for the night slate, I'm going to say number 1 is the Los Angeles Dodgers. Number 2, I'm going to go with the Baltimore Orioles, get a little bit of leverage off of Blake Snell's project for almost 80% ownership on the night slate. So I think just if you're looking to play a lineup or two that gets away from Blake Snell, makes sense to stack against him. Dodgers 1, Orioles 2, Padres 3, Brewers 4 against Clayton Kershaw. So Chris, I know you didn't ask it. Well, I didn't know at the time. I know now you didn't ask it, but I hope that helps you with your late slate lineups. Let's build some lineups in the lineup generator now, which if you guys want to sign up for, link below, less than $5 when you sign up for the first time, and follow up there. For whatever reason, Chris's super chat didn't show up in YouTube. Look at that.
You see, Jordan just responded that he can see it in the back end, though. Weird.
Yeah, I know. Jordan's told that to me before. Weird. All right. All stack types, Jordan. Let's go contrarian. We'll see what ends up popping up here. And I think I'm going to be a little bit more spread out today. Let's see if that's the case. Stack exposures. Yeah, a little bit. 60% Mariners, 60% Cubs, 25% White Sox. And yeah, I mean, there's all that wind at Wrigley Field today. Whenever you get one of those games where the wind is expected to be blowing out to center field, you just get like any ball that's hitting the air ends up being a home run. So I've got a whole lot of exposure to the Cubs today. Mentioned they're my most stacked offense. I like getting to the White Sox as well on the other side. If you look at the player exposures, let's see who some of the individual hitters are and pitchers that we're getting the most of on DraftKings. And we'll do this for FanDuel as well. So let's see the player exposures. So Cubs, we're getting the most of our Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, Ian Happ. The Mariners that we're getting the most exposure to are Cal Raleigh, Ty France, Eugenio Suarez, Julio Rodriguez. The pitchers we're getting the most of. Was there a pitcher at the top as well there, Jordan? Oh, no. So we're pretty spread out of pitcher. Our most roster pitcher we got to here is 35% of Charlie Morton, followed by 30% of Clayton Kershaw, 25% John Gray, 25% Kevin Gausman, 25% Aaron Nola. I think this is the most spread out pitcher exposure we've gotten the entire year in this, Neil.
Yeah, it's very spread out, which is, I don't, it's kind of similar to what you and I are both getting. Like, I'm not getting to anybody more than 40-ish% either. So good to see.
Yeah, pretty spread out. And it's so kind of spread out today for like the opposite. It was spread out yesterday. Today it's because there's so many good options. Yesterday it's because everybody sucked. Yeah. So different reasons to be spread out a pitcher on DK. Let's check out FanDuel and see what it is that we end up getting to that. By the way, Chris, you don't have to leave us another super chat. I appreciate it, but you don't have to. I don't know what YouTube's issue is, but
literally not his issue. If everybody else can see it,
yeah, it's not your issue. It's a YouTube issue. We appreciate it. The sentiment is what counts here. I don't want to make you give us more money.
Yeah.
All right. Let's save these lineups to see what ended up popping up on FanDuel. So as far as FanDuel goes, once again, a lot of Cubs, 85% Cubs stacks on FanDuel, followed by 40% Mariners, 20% White Sox, like the same teams popping up most predominantly for us over on FanDuel. It did on DK. Most rostered Cubs also pretty similar. Nico Horner, Ian Happ, Dansby Swanson, Heimer Candelario, Mike Tauchman. As far as pitchers go, we're getting Gausman the most on FanDuel, followed by who else? Luis Castillo at 15%. And then who else? John Gray there at 10%. And then if we look at the Mariners, we got the most exposure to. It was Julio Rodriguez, Eugenio Suarez, Teoscar Hernandez. Thank you for highlighting that name there, Jordan, because I didn't see him there. And then Rojas. And then, all right. So yeah, pretty spread out in terms of what we got to for the Mariners. The Mariners that we got. So we got to a lot of Mariners stacks, but it looks like Julio Rodriguez was the only one who showed up in a bunch of lineups.
Yeah. And if you're going to get one in a bunch of lineups, should be Julio Rodriguez.
35% Julio Rodriguez, 30% Teoscar Hernandez, only hitters that were 30+% owned, even though we got as many Mariners as we did. So if you guys want to check out the lineup generator, the easiest tool to use for startup DFS players, use the link below, less than $5 when you sign up for the first time. So at this point in the show, Neil, we've kind of made it clear which stacks it is that we are getting the most of. Double checking Discord to make sure there are no questions we missed, which there are not. But which stack, I've made it clear that I'm playing the Cubs the most. Is that also the stack you have the most exposure to?
I'm actually getting the most of Seattle, which surprises me a little. Actually, I should double check. So at least the highest exposed players I'm getting to are from Seattle. Let me actually look at my stacks, move over here, because it might be, it's looking pretty close, because I do have a lot of Cubs at the top also. I'm so bad at using the Sims tool. I went back to the Sims tool today, and I'm just not good at navigating it still. So I have, it's actually very, very close to me. So I have 43% five bands of Seattle, 41% of the Cubs, but I have 3% three mans of Seattle, 8% of the Cubs. So those two are neck and neck as my highest exposed by far currently.
Yeah, it is the Cubs I get the most of. I actually have a good amount more of the Cubs than I do of the Mariners. Mariners, my second most rostered stack. So if we're going to rank the team, same way we do with the pitchers, Neil, right? Where we went through the four most popular, expensive pitchers and we rank them. Let's do that with stacks as well. Cubs, Mariners. I have to go back to the main slate from the night slate ownership. All right. So yeah, Cubs, Mariners, Braves, and White Sox. Of those four teams, rank them 1 to 4 in terms of most to least exposure for yourself.
Cubs, Mariners, Braves, and White Sox. I have the most of the, I guess, Cubs when you factor in three-man stacks, also followed by the Mariners. Those two very close. I actually have very little of, so it would be actually the White Sox third. I have 8% three-man stacks of the White Sox. Kind of surprising to see that. I currently don't have any five bands of the Braves. I only have 3% three-man stacks of the Braves, 1% four-man. So actually not getting to a lot of the Braves, which really worries me, but they're fourth of that group.
Same for me. Cubs 1, Mariners 2, White Sox 3, Braves 4. I'm underweight to the field on both the White Sox and the Braves, though.
Yeah, me too. Which is terrifying.
I mean, to an extent.
Terrifying
right?
for the Braves. The White Sox, I'm not as terrified by, but the Braves, it feels like they go off, 4 out of every 5 nights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I would say they go off 5 out of every 4 nights, the way the Braves are running this year.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you why I'm getting underweight to the Braves and why I'm not like crazy concerned about it. Here's why I would be concerned if I had a ton of Braves today. Because if you're playing a ton of Braves, it means you aren't paying up at pitcher. I would be way more afraid of fading the high-end pitchers today than fading a high-end offense.
Yeah, I think that because we do have a number of good stacks. So I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So that's why for today, like if the Braves go out and score, 20 runs, then I obviously I'm screwed for today. I only have 1.5% Braves stacks, but just the way the lineups shake out for this slate with the high end pitching, I think it does make sense to be underweight to the Braves and prioritize some of these other popular stacks that are just cheaper and let you pay up for some of the better pitching, like a Cubs for today, for instance, why I get to so many of them. What are the contrarian teams you have the most exposure to, if any? I mentioned before that for me, the Orioles are number one. That's a team that I'd said to Jorge before. It's the one that I'm prioritizing the most. Not only is it a team that's underowned in the top stacks, but we're also getting a lot of leverage because Blake Snell is expected to be the most popular pitcher on the slate. What did you ultimately land on as your number one most rostered contrarian stack?
So I hate to say it, but none. Like I just have so much of the chalk. I've got I guess 2% 5-mans of Boston, 2% of Baltimore. Baltimore is a pretty contrarian, right? So maybe I guess Baltimore would be the most contrarian stack that I'm actually getting to at 2%. Yeah, so I'm even with the field though. Like I'm not even above weight to the field on Baltimore. I'm not getting to anybody contrarian all that much in terms of full stacks. Yeah, just Baltimore for me. You get into anybody?
Yep, I mentioned Baltimore. As far as other ones, there are ones in there, but not any more than so I've 3.5% of the Brewers, right? So technically I'm overweight to them, actually, twice the field on the Brewers, but I don't know that I really want to highlight that I have, 3% of a team as if I'm making any kind of real stand, but
right.
I'm underweight to Kershaw. He's not somebody who I think is a great option because of the pitch count concern. So I do have some exposure to the Brewers for today. Now, let's go ahead also, double check Discord. Nothing doing in there. It's dong time, Neil. So guys, everything I would like you to do, first of all, you know what Neil's home run pick is going to be. I would very appreciate if you undercut Neil and threw in the YouTube chat what your home run pick is right now, and maybe give out the guy you think Neil is going to pick. If anyone who's watching in Discord and want to give out a home run pick, go ahead and do it. It's time for dongs, Neil.
Nobody can reverse engineer this process. Nobody's going to be able to figure out who my home run pick is, Greg. Just try. Yeah, it would have to be. I mean, I went with Matt Olson yesterday. Has anybody in chat said it yet?
Yep. And not only have they said it, B-Funks and Neil is going to pick Matt Olson.
Well, I didn't actually pick him. I said that I picked him yesterday. I was just mentioning that I picked him yesterday.
You were, although your next was, has anybody picked Matt Olson? Yeah, which kind of indicates you were about to pick Matt Olson.
No, I wasn't coming anywhere close to saying it. I was just wondering. I was just curious if people picked Matt Olson. I was going to go straight to Christopher Morel.
Let's see. Has anybody picked Christopher Morel yet? Nobody has gone to Christopher Morel. We've got Luis Robert. We've got Bellinger, Andrew Vaughn. That's from our friend Emac, Marcus Semien. Lots of Matt Olsons in the chat. Lots of people on Matt Olson to homer today. Shohei Ohtani, Will Smith, Freddie Freeman, Cody Bellinger again. So lots of home run picks being given out in the chat. And yeah, Matt Olson, the most popular one in there. So not only did one person say Matt Olson, Neil, but about 10 people said Matt Olson. Father Time went with Marcell Ozuna. Nice Kevin. He is not on Morel, but he does like the call anyway. We've got Rob P is going with Adolis Garcia. Kenneth Woodhouse, he also went with Cody Bellinger. Noah Gray went with Bellinger. Let's see. What do I want to do here? I'm going to not do any Cubs players. Because I mean, they're just the most obvious. That's what everybody's doing. Let's see. For myself. All right, I've got one I like. I like this one quite a bit. Yeah, I'm doing it. Mitch Garver. Garver is always for his career hit left-hand pitching way better than right-hand pitching. It was a point. Now he primarily DHs. There was a point in time where he was like the best hitting catcher in baseball. We talked before about Reed Detmers and how I like the Texas Rangers as a somewhat contrarian stack on FanDuel. And on DraftKings, they're also viable, although slightly more popular, so I didn't say them as any kind of contrarian stack. But with all the hard contact and the home runs Reed Detmer's given up lately, why not a right-hand hitter with a lot of power in the middle of the order for the Texas Rangers? Garver. That is going to be my home run pick of the day. So let's see some dongs. I know that's what we're all here. We all want to see some dongs. So guys, Thank you very much for watching. If you have not done yet, do us a favor, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. Don't forget about the deal with Sleeper as well. Over 2.5 strikeouts for Kevin Gausman today. It's going to win. Get in on it if you've not already. Sign up using the link that we have below. Thank you very much for watching once again. Let's all make some money today, and we'll be back here tomorrow. Good luck tonight, guys. Have a good one.